Hey everyone, this is Cindy. Thanks for tuning in to episode number 2 of the Cindy Hales Show. This episode was actually recorded back in October of 2018, but it's still awesome. It's probably one of the favorite episodes that I've done. It's with my friend, Ivan Salaverry. You guys may know Ivan from the UFC. If you live in Seattle or have trained in this area, he has a gym in South Lake Union, Ivan Salaverry MMA. They have a great crew of guys down there, super tough training. They do MMA, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, no-gi grappling, and also Turkish oil wrestling. We talk a little bit about that. We talk about a lot of other things in the episode. Like I said, this is one of my favorite episodes because Ivan is very enthusiastic and very charismatic, and it comes through. He has some great stories, and I think you guys are going to enjoy it. Let me know what you think, and thanks for checking out the Cindy Hales Show. Check out other episodes at cindyhales.com. And also, if you're in the Linwood area, once all this crazy coronavirus stuff is over, come and check out my gym, Sleeper Jiu-Jitsu. You can check us out online at sleeperjj.com. Thanks, and enjoy this episode of the Cindy Hales Show with Ivan Salaverry. Okay, I'm here with Ivan Salaverry, and thank you for your time, Ivan. I'm really excited. I haven't been in your gym in a while, and I have really good memories here, so I'm excited to be here. I know you're one of the old school, Northwest guys, and I'm really fascinated about all the stories, and I want to talk to you. So let's start. I want to know about little Ivan, pre-wrestling. Tell me about little Ivan. I think I've been to your house once and saw a picture of you, maybe junior high, high school Ivan, wrestling picture. Is that true?
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for, interviewing me. This is cool. I love it. Good to see you. And we've shared a lot. We've worked out together quite a few times.
Yeah.
Where do I start? My goodness. I think.
What kind of kid was Ivan?
Me?
Yeah.
Well, I was troubled.
Are you the same Ivan as you are now?
I hope not. I think I went through a few situations that made me a little bit feisty.
Yeah.
I think that there's a few things. One is culture. I think that transitioning from South America to New York to out here, there were certain difficulties just transitioning from culture to culture to culture. And it was very interesting because especially in the 70s and the 80s, fighting and having any kind of conflict with another peer wasn't frowned upon. It wasn't a bad thing to get in a fight. If it got carried away, of course, but normally there was a leeway to have fights with kids, and it wasn't looked upon as bad as it is now. And not only that, but it was almost expected of you in certain aspects to defend yourself and defend your honor, defend your neighborhood, whatever it may be. So there was also this an ability to always kind of have that triggered response of fighting. Right, at least in my culture and the transitions of where I was from. So in Chile, it was expected. In New York, especially in the 80s, it was no joke. It was where I was from in Queens. Very different. To fight, it wasn't. It was a situation where you were fighting a lot more definitely than most kids are fighting now. You had a certain glance, you had a certain look, a certain stance, a certain attitude. You already having a certain conflict, which was extremely different when I moved out here. When I moved out to Washington, it just felt like the whole world turned blonde and blue-eyed, and very suburbia. And so it was different. And I remember I got kicked out of my high school, suspended for my third day in high school. And I came out here 85.
Okay.
That's a while ago.
Yeah.
And I landed in Mount Lake Terrace. Edmonds. And then I was assigned to go to Woodway High School. And so my first period class, it was gym. And it was a bunch of guys and a bunch of girls. And I'm looking at the bunch of guys, and I'm looking at a bunch of the girls, and I'm oh, I'm going to the bunch of girls. I was these are beautiful girls, right? And I was oh my God, this is so cool. And back then I had a really thick New York accent. So I went in there, and also another thing is when you go to school in New York, you kind of look quasi-sharp, right? You iron your stuff, you put a little cologne on, you comb
Dress
your
up.
hair, you dress up,
Yeah.
you wear your little bit of jewelry if you have any.
A little more metropolitan.
Exactly. So, and you go in there, and I was already very confident. I had no problems in introducing myself, especially to girls that I felt that that I was attracted to. I was like, hey, how you doing? My name's Ivan, blah blah blah, and they were super friendly back. Which was different because in New York, a lot of the females are very standoffish, and there was an attitude barrier that you had to go through before you got to know them. So when I came in, I was like, oh my God, these girls are talking to me. In my head, I was like, this is awesome. They're beautiful. You know what I mean? And I had a great time. First day, you know what I mean? Just had a great time. Second day, great time. Awesome, right? Third day, same thing. Oh my God, these girls are awesome. Getting numbers, right? Back in the day, they give you the home number, right? And then all of a sudden I went to the locker room and this dude comes up to me. He's like, hey, dude, I just want to know, are you some kind of fag? And I'm like, what'd you say to me? And he's like, no, dude, we just want to know, man. He's like, are you like a fag? He's like, I'm going to see you after class. And he was like, huh? He didn't even understand what like.
Didn't even register,
doesn't
like,
register
all
that
the things.
Yeah. Walked outside of the you know what I mean? I walked outside. He walked outside. And like he's coming and like he was oblivious to what was going to happen. I was like, boom! And I knocked his books off his hands. Whack, 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 whack. And I broke his nose and he bled everywhere. And there were some girls on the side. Ah! They fucking screamed and I'm like, what? What are you screaming about? Like the fact that it didn't even hit me that they were so fucking far away from the fact that there was going to be a fight that day.
Yeah, they weren't thinking that.
They weren't even thinking that at all, and they've never seen a guy bleed. Never mind have his nose broken. And I was like, I was a little bit shocked. Like, what? Why are they screaming? It's like it's a fight. Leave me alone. And at the end, I was like, but this fag beat your fucking ass. Boom, and I mushed him, and he was on the ground. He was on his knees already, and I threw him on the ground. And I walked back to my second period class. Yeah. Ivan Salaverry, please come to the office. Ivan Salaverry, please come to the office. And I was like, fuck. And I walked over and I'm like, fuck, we just moved over here. My dad just got a job at Boeing. He's going to fucking kill me. This motherfucker, he's going to kill me. So I walk in, I was at the office. Mr. Salaverry, please sit down right here. Would you like to make a statement? I'm like, no. I'm not writing shit. And then the other guy's parents came over, and then my dad came over, and he was up in the plant up in Everett. And he's like, ¿Qué hiciste? ¿Qué pasó? And I'm like, Papi, cállate la boca. I'm like, shut the fuck up, right? And I'm like, oh, fuck, this motherfucker's going to kill me. He walks into the office, you know what I mean? And they spend like 10, 15 minutes in there. Walks out. Mijo, ¿qué pasó? Papi, man, he called me a fag. He's like, why? I don't know. He's like, good for you. But come over here. So he got the paperwork, all that shit, and we started driving. He's like, look around you. What the fuck do you see? Look around you. And it's like, look, they're mowing their lawn. Fucking people are walking. Nobody's trying to mug you. No one's trying to fucking steal from you. Wake up.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm like, yeah. It's like, yeah, be cool. Relax. Okay? Enjoy yourself. That here in Washington, it's cool. People are cool. You know what I mean? He didn't mean nothing by it. Really. With all honesty, he didn't mean nothing by it. It's like, okay. But, I understand you defended yourself. But kick back. And after that, I was like, I had a whole other different understanding of what like Seattle and Washington was about. You know what I mean? It's not New York. It's not Queens. It's not Brooklyn. Right? It's a whole different other universe.
You don't have to survive in that way. Maybe.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So and ever since then, it was a situation where I kind of looked at things a little bit differently. But I still had it in me. I still liked that fight. I don't know what you call it, but it's something that it's like I wanted it, right? And so it was very interesting. I got moved. I went from Woodway. I went to Malik Terrace.
Okay.
And so my dad was always into track. He was a champion in Chile. He was a 400 hurdles champion, national champion. And so he wanted me to run. And I was like, okay, cool. I love running. You know what I mean? I really did enjoy running. So I started doing cross country. And I was a skinny little lanky dude, and I'm running. And all of a sudden, these little like muscly dudes, or like short little muscly dudes, they run up next to me, and they were like, "Hey, you like wrestling?" And I'm like, what? Sure. Why? It's like, won't you meet us like next whatever day at 3:00? And I'm like, okay, cool. And then they fall back because they couldn't keep up with my pace.
Yeah.
They fall back a little bit. It's like, oh, yeah.
Motor off.
And so I was like, all right, cool. And so, and these two guys they were twins, and they were the Rue brothers from Mount Lake Terrace. And so next day I went over there, and it was very interesting. It's like, you know, they had a matted area that they put out in a gymnasium, and they had a few guys in there. And they were like explaining to me what the rules were. You do this, and do the pinning and the controlling, and you can take them down this way, this way, this way. And I'm like, it was like I didn't even understand it, but I was like, must take down, must grab, take down,
Grab, down.
put down,
Yes.
right? And so I was like, and it was awesome just having the ability to just like, using my body and grabbing them, and they were grabbing me, and I'm defending myself, and I was like, I love this. This is the shit. You know what I mean?
Is that the first you really saw wrestling?
Correct. That's the first time. I mean, I did a little bit of karate, you know what I mean, and did some other stuff. But like forming, like having a room full of wrestlers, you know what I mean, and be wrestling with those guys was cool, and I liked it, and I liked the environment, and I was like, and afterwards, you know, you get that high from just rolling, and I was like, I like this.
Yeah.
I want to do this, right? And so, you know, and they were like, yeah, no problem, sign up with the coach, blah, 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 blah. And like, and from there, it just took off, you know what I mean? And I was very fortunate that in the neighborhood where we were at in Mount Lake Terrace, we just had a nice little crew of wrestlers, you know what I mean? And that was the first time, especially, you know what I mean, as a young, you know, 14-year-old, 15-year-old, that you start thinking about your food intake, right? What are you really eating? Is it nutritious, right? Your water intake, right? You start thinking about your weightlifting, you know what I mean, in a productive way. You start thinking about moves, and back then there was no internet, you know what I mean. So you literally had to like, you know, trade VHS tapes, you know what I mean, with each other about like old ass fucking wrestling, you know, Olympics.
Weird fucking Dan Gable book.
Right?
Yeah.
Books from the library and stuff, you know, that didn't really show much, but you tried your best, and, you know, you traded off all these different little Olympics and NCAA championships to pick up whatever you could in whichever which way. But I just fell in love with it, and there's nothing like it. And I think that, you know, a lot of times certain nostalgic smells come to mind, right? Running, and you smell that the people's chimneys, right? And it's cold out, and you see your breath, and you're still, you know, you're running for the sake of losing weight, you know what I mean? Being inside that stadium, or the auditorium, and it smells like popcorn, you know what I mean? And the crowd cheering. And there's a lot of nostalgic things that I enjoyed about like high school wrestling and the wrestling culture, and hard practices, and how it feels when like you had a hard practice and then you walk outside and you smell that crispy fresh air after hard practice. Those are all like beautiful feelings and things that I enjoyed, and memories of striving to be more, you know what I mean, and wrestling, and thinking about winning, and thinking about, you know, things that as a young person, a lot of times I think you don't do if you don't do anything pugilistically competitive. You know what I mean? On the other side of that mat is somebody that's trying to pin you and embarrass you in front of their crowd or your crowd. Yeah. You know? And so how do you combat that? And not only that, but I also started little by little, falling in love with the crowd yelling for me. Right? And you start enjoying that.
It's a special feeling.
Right?
Yeah.
It's just like you start liking that confidence that you get, that people appreciate what you do and how you entertain them. Yeah. Right? And there's that connection. It's another connection, another variable.
All kinds of layers.
Yeah. And so those are all little nuances that you pick up in wrestling that develop me. You know what I mean? And so you start asking yourself, oh, am I going to go to that party on Saturday? Or am I going to run and watch my weight and do some shooting drills, right? And that's really one of the first few times in your life that you're going to start equating hard work versus party, and what is the outcome of that, right?
That accountability for yourself and that feeling of cheering Ivan.
Yeah.
There's a trade-off if you don't do that. Yeah. So I remember that feeling when I first discovered it. I was like, where was this all my life?
Right.
Where was this thing that would have like given me that thing I needed
Yeah.
to not be crazy person?
And
Like, I would have loved this. Yeah, I would
Yeah,
have really excelled. Yeah, that's great.
It's also important to like at those moments. It was important for me to understand and equate the hard work, right? That oh my God, my body looks different. These look with my shoulders. I got a little chest, right? Oh my God, my legs are getting bigger. That's awesome. Why? Because I'm running, I'm lifting, I'm wrestling. Feels good. And when I'm wrestling, right? I don't know why. Why do I feel so good? Why does it feel good to wrestle? You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
exhausting. I'm tired. I'm huffing. Right? He's yanking on my neck. He's trying to throw me on my back. But there was something there that was awesome, and then I think from there it transitioned more and more and more, right?
What was your next step for it?
Well,
High school end, you wrestled through.
But the thing about it is like I was having problems. I wasn't a good kid. I got in trouble a lot.
You still had the other side.
Yeah.
You had the discipline, and then you still had the other.
Yeah. Well,
other side.
it was hard because I think it was hard on my dad also, on the fact that he had the swing shift, right,
Okay.
in bowling.
Yeah.
So it's hard, you know what I mean, to be there when you literally can't be there because
can't
you
be
got to
there.
work. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? You got the shift that really doesn't allow you to be there. So after the season, there was a lot of time. You know what I mean? And there wasn't a lot of structure. So I kind of like almost like raised myself in many aspects.
Yeah.
So it was I didn't have a lot of direction, right? So right after that I went to the Marine Corps. Like literally right after high school, like a few days after graduation, I was in boot camp.
Gone. Ivan was gone.
Out.
Okay, I had forgotten. I knew that you were in the Marine Corps.
Yeah. So, and I was there for a little bit, and then I did a little recreational judo and a recreational wrestling, and I loved it. It was awesome, but it wasn't really taken seriously. I didn't like really look at it and go, oh my God, I gotta do something with this. I
Yeah.
enjoyed it. I knew that I enjoyed it. But, I mean, I was a wild child. I didn't know my thing. But what triggered everything into the momentum of MMA was obviously the first UFCs.
Those tapes.
Oh, my God.
That's what got me. And I didn't even like wrestling at the point. I just had a friend who brought him over, and I was like, what is that? That skinny fucking guy.
That connection was this, that guy looked like my dad, a tall, lanky Latino
Yeah.
in pajamas,
Yeah.
right? And, oh, my God, he was winning through wrestling and grappling moves.
Yeah.
These big dudes, on him, and he was able to tap him out. And like, what did he do? What was that? That was awesome. That was beautiful.
Rewind
Oh,
it.
he won. It's like, oh my God. So I was like, oh my God, this is great. And it just proved, you know what I mean, that these grappling moves that everybody thought for a long time, especially in those days, that kung fu and striking
Kickboxing and
yeah, right,
Karate Kid.
and like all these striking arts, and it is a very, very, very effective. I'm not going to deny it, but it definitely showed how special and beautiful grappling is.
Yeah.
Right? How jiu-jitsu is intense and huge in its enormity of techniques.
Yeah.
And the how to capture, somebody with your moves and submit him, make him say uncle, right? And that was when I was like, when I first started seeing those, I was like, I have to do this. I have to do this, right? And
Were
I
you
started
out
having,
of the Marines when you saw
yes,
him?
it's
Okay.
so
you were here again.
Yeah, and I was partying back then. I used to.
Let's
I used
segue, because I remember.
I used to be a club promoter.
I remember I worked at a place, and some guy showed me some pictures. You know Ivan.
Really?
You know Ivan. And they were pictures of you. You had long hair.
Yeah.
And I think you were standing on a forklift or a box or something, dancing. Sasha.
Sasha,
from-
Kyle.
Kyle, yeah.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it's Ivan.
Yeah.
So did you promote at the Knock Knock Room?
I
What-
did. I promoted at the
So you
Knock
were doing
Knock.
that.
I promoted at Victor's.
Okay.
And it was just a little section of time in my life where I used to love clubbing. I used to love
Yeah.
dancing.
Yeah,
And
you
I
went
used to
that way.
Yeah, and I danced all the time. I danced at these little boxes, little go-go dancer stuff and stuff.
That was your physical outlet before, when you didn't have wrestling.
I love dancing. I
You-
still
you
love
s- you s-
dancing.
you're still
I
a dancer.
dancing. You know,
Oh,
with
I
my
knew
wife,
that.
we go
How
out
could I
dancing and
not
stuff all the
ask
time.
that?
And I love it. And so And back then, not a lot of people knew, especially here in Seattle, about house music, right? House music was like, it's like people barely knew about it, right? They knew like, that there was disco for dancing, and there was a little bit of like this like top 40 stuff that sort of sounded like house, but it really wasn't house, right?
Yeah.
So I luckily I was able to solicit to this club, that I could bring in DJs, and for X percentage of the door that I could get these DJs and have fill up their venue. And I got the gig, and the club was called Victor's, and the club night was Desire, and it was on Thursday. It was Thursday night Desire. And it was fucking cool. And we decorated the place out. We made this pole into this big tree. We put this, the background of this big parachute with lights behind it, behind the DJ booth. And it was cool. And I brought in DJs from everywhere. We started going San Francisco, LA, right? We picked up a lot of guys from Chicago, so a few guys from New York, right? All over the place. And they were the main focus, the DJs from out of town, but then we also opened with local DJs.
Okay.
Right? So we kind of like, we formed,
built up the crew, local guys,
built
all
up,
your friends
built up
that you
DJs,
knew.
built up DJs from this area. And it was so fun. I mean, that period of time was a very fun time for me. I had, they were paying me to dance and to club, what I mean? And it was
be
too
a man
cool.
about town.
Yeah, it was cool. We had all kinds of tricks, and our main focus was like, who do we want here? That's what we were asking ourselves, right? Who do we want here? And I was like, I want the fucking the floor packed full of people that love clubbing.
Yeah.
And I was like, who do we go? All right, first we're gonna go up on the hill. We're gonna solicit to all the gays. We're gonna go up all the gays. And it's like, really? You're gonna bring them out to Pioneer Square? Yes, we're gonna bring them down here. Then we're going to go to all the dance places. So we went to Cornish. We went to all the ballet studios. We went to all the jazz dancing. We wanted dancers, people that really liked to dance and who knew how to dance. And then we went to all the strip joints, right? And we went to all the strip joints and started passing out. And we brought all the strippers out to the club. So there was this weird mix of gays and strippers and dancers. And it was crazy. And everybody just started flocking to it. And it was a really cool night. It was a Thursday night, and we were packing about 400 to 500 people on a Thursday night, which was unheard of. You know what I mean? And it was a segue to party throughout the weekend. So you party with me on Thursday, then it was a Friday, another club, and then Saturday was a rave, and then Sunday there was another club. So it was like 4 days in a row clubbing. And of course, with that comes all the partying and the drugs and the alcohol and the women and all that stuff. It was crazy. It was an intense time. It was awesome. It was beautiful. But in the back of my mind, you know what I mean? I was like, okay, this is cute. But I was still thinking about
That guy in the fucking pajamas.
in the cage. I was like, I gotta do this. You know what I mean? Especially because I literally had dreams about it. And so I was like, okay, I gotta segue out of this. I gotta get out of this club scene. Love it. I had a great time. But I can't be partying and doing this.
Yeah.
So how do I do this? And this is I give advice to my fighters about this, which is very, very important. And your life has to sustain your lifestyle, especially in the beginning of your MMA life, right? So you can't do this without a job. You cannot. It's an impossibility. You cannot do this without having your shit together. You gotta have your shit together. If you don't have your shit together, fight requires so much energy out of you. Fight requires so much discipline out of you. So if you got things just fucking flip-flopping, you can't pay the bills and the house and the fucking car's fucked up, and it's horrible for you to focus on what is important to focus on. You.
Yeah.
It's extremely selfish to know that you have to worry about your techniques, right? Your athleticism, your food, right? Your rest, your stretching, your mental state, right? You have to study techniques, right? All that stuff has to be extremely focused. So I had to really plan and look at my life in a very different way. And so right off the bat, I was like, I need a job. I can't have a job that's going to be too taxing for my body. right? I can't be freaking roofing or freaking drywalling or concrete. Great jobs. I'm not saying that they're not.
Yep.
Great jobs. But it's too taxing on the
Not part of
shoulders,
the
on the
plan.
hips. My hips and shoulders can't have double tax.
Yeah.
Right? So I was like, okay, I gotta find a job that I can sit down somewhere and I can, you know what I mean? I can still be able to pay rent, right? The light bill, the water bill, right?
Food.
Insurance, right?
Yeah.
My health insurance, my car insurance, food bill. I mean, there's a lot of variables that you need to be on top of,
Yeah.
or else it will wreck your life if you think that you're gonna get in this and not have your shit together.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I was like, okay, what can I do? It's like, I gotta get a job. And luckily, I had my buddy Leo, who worked at DSHS, which is the Department of Health and Social Services, right? And so I was like, yo, papito, man, he's Venezuelan. He's like, yo, man, I need a job. What you got? And he's like, well, won't you, write out, put out your little test and figure out where you fit in and go from there. I can help you out and see if we can get you into the welfare office. Cool. All right. So I did my little test, got in, and I was a welfare case manager for DSHS. And that gave me the opportunity and the ability, right? First, that I had a job that wasn't killing me, right? It was like, it's not that it's an easy job.
It's easier on the body, the desk job.
By far, right? And I was able to also work out in the morning, right? I did a little morning workout. They gave me an opportunity at the DSHS. They gave me there was a little conference room that if it wasn't being used, I could do my little shit in there, right? I could do my little jump rope. I had some exercise stuff that I did, right, that I could use. And I had my little morning workout, right? Or my afternoon workout, right? And then in the evenings, I was able to fucking travel across the fucking city and go to AMC, right? And that's another thing, is that AMC was godsend. Like, AMC at that, and it still is for that matter. I mean, it was like, you had...
They've produced so many people.
Matt Hume at that moment he's a pioneer, of MMA. And, I mean, I was blessed the fact that we had that type of trainer here. But let me back it up a little bit because the truth of the matter is that even before Matt Hume, right, I started doing jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
Right? And so I got the job. I got the house, right? I was paying my bills. And then I was like looking for jiu-jitsu places. And the first jiu-jitsu guy was Glenn Barber.
Okay.
That came out from San Diego, from the Machados.
Like a blue belt or purple belt.
A purple belt. He had a gym up in Aurora that a lot of us here in the Northwest went to for a bit.
That was a catalyst. I asked around a part of this project, and that's this like catalyst, that little space up there.
Yeah. And so it wasn't a bad gig. Unfortunately, the guy little by little started losing his mind. He had adult onset schizophrenia. Yeah. So, and I think he also had an issue with alcohol. So, that imbalance in his head plus the alcohol use kind of like drove him to the edge, right? And so, but then I transitioned because then there was a Brazilian in the city, right? Yeah. And so, Marcelo Alonso, who's my professor, was in town from Brazil, directly from Rio de Janeiro, from Carlson Gracie, the champion factory.
The team.
And he was the team coach, the team trainer, right?
What year was that, Ivan? I think.
My love, you're making me think.
99, I think.
No, before that. Before that, my love. Before that, I'm telling you, I think it was 96.
Okay.
You know what I mean? So
early.
Yeah.
Fucking early.
Yeah. And so, and guess what? Right, I was a little white belt, you know what I mean? And then right next to me was this blue belt from Brazil. Rodrigo Lopez, he was a little blue belt back in the day.
Yeah.
Right? And we would train together, and it was awesome. We would like have, we'd eat together and we'd hang out at the house and stuff. It was awesome. And also Eugene Cruz. I don't know if people remember him, but
Eugenio,
that's right.
I never met him, but that was like he left right before I got there, and I would hear about him.
Yeah. And so, and then obviously Eric Dahlberg, who's my slice, you know what I mean? And who else? There was
Owens would show up.
Owens, that's right.
I think Brandon Dudley might have been a little bit around.
Brandon Dudley was there, but that was when he moved the school over to Tacoma, and that's where he picked up a lot of the Fort Lewis guys.
Yeah.
Right. So there was a mixture of these guys that was just starting out jiu-jitsu who are now like, I mean, these are elite athletes and coaches in the Northwest area. And we were buddies. We were hanging out, and it was a beautiful culture. We were just in this beginning of this jiu-jitsu grappling culture.
Because Marcelo really was the spearhead for all of that.
For
Marcelo
all
Alonso.
of it. Yes, Marcelo
He
Alonso
was
was
the
the
guy.
beginning of it all, and I loved it. I mean, Marcelo was awesome to me. I loved him. He was an incredible teacher. And, it was great to, from him to hear, Ivan, you have Hasa. And I'm like, what the fuck is Hasa? And it's like passion. It's like, you have heart, right, when you grapple. And that's the thing about it, is that I love to grapple intensely, and I enjoyed grappling, and I enjoyed jiu-jitsu. It wasn't just a sport. I loved it. I enjoyed it. So, but in the end, also at the same time, I wanted to do MMA. You know what I mean? I wanted
Still thinking
to do.
about the cage.
I'm
I
thinking
don't want those pajamas anymore.
Exactly. I was thinking about, cage fighting, and I wanted, and like I was like, Marcelo, are you gonna be able to teach me Vale Tudo? Yeah, Ivan, yeah, no problem. It's kind of like he kind of like shooed me off, like shush.
Yeah.
It's like, "Stop, just do the jujitsu." Like basically he was saying, just do the jujitsu, right? And I was like, no, I want to fight Marcelo. So I asked him.
I got the Hasa.
Exactly. Right. And it's like 6 months later, it's like, come on. It's like, are you going to teach me? Yeah. And it was never really an engagement of teaching me, the Vale Tudo or the MMA. So
That was
eventually,
your passion, not his at the moment.
correct.
Yeah.
And so, and I get it. I
Yeah.
mean, he was not only here to be a jiu-jitsu teacher, but he had a business, right? And his business model was at that moment just jiu-jitsu.
Yeah.
And I get it.
Totally.
But I was able, to had a little talk with some people, and a few people were trying to recruit me into AMC, right? And I was like, okay, Marcelo, and I had a nice talk with him, and he gave me his blessing. And he basically said, go ahead, And I appreciate the fact that he gave me a blessing basically to go out and explore other, this other school, to explore what I wanted to do as a sport, right? And so, I was able to go to AMC for my MMA training. And at that moment, I was blessed. I mean, honestly, it was a crossroads of such wonderful fighters that I was able to train with, with Josh Barnett, and Dennis Hallman, and Benji Radich, Maurice Smith, right? Bristol Burundi, Aaron Riley, and of course the Japanese guys, because back then Matt Hume was the Pride organization, not referee. What do you call it? In the side of the cage,
Like officiation,
an official.
official or
He was-
judge.
correct.
And
He
he,
was
had something where he was training some of those fighters.
Correct. So he had a
Sakurai
contract
and
with
like
Pride.
Rich Franklin and all those people.
Yes,
Come over.
but that was afterwards.
Okay.
But at that moment when Pride was going on, and he was officiating for Pride, he got certain contracts to train certain fighters from Japan, just to get them out of Japan and
Some new
and some new stuff. So
Yeah.
and then back then we also used to cross train a lot with Maurice. So Maurice had his gym over in Bellevue. We were over in Kirkland. He used to bring a lot of guys, a lot of kickboxers in his gym,
Yeah.
right? So, we had Kao Uno, Akira Shoji, Sakurai. I mean, all these guys, the Inoue brothers would
Yeah.
come by. So there was a lot of, and it was a beautiful environment at that time because it was all brand new. Right, everything was brand
And
new.
you
The
were right in the middle
organization,
of it.
right? It's like
Yeah.
all the organizations were spanking new. All this it was a vibrant energy that was going on, and I was in the mix of it. I was able to do it. It was cool, and that's one thing. Also, is like I highly suggest that anybody that goes into this sport, that they don't look at the easy way out. A lot of guys I see that they want to go into gyms and they're like looking to be the dominant player in a room. You don't want to be the dominant player.
No,
in the
get
room.
out of that gym.
Get out of that. Absolutely.
You
You want to
know-
look. You want to be in a place where you're going to be
Challenged.
nervous.
Yeah.
Like I literally would. I remember walking in all the time, for that matter. All the time, I'd walk into AMC and you had to take a deep breath. You're like, right? And it's like, walk in, right? Okay, let's do this.
In the car, a couple like, okay, you should just
Let's
drive
do this.
away. No, get the fucking bag and walk in.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was wow, man. Yeah, it was it was an intense moment, right? When you walk in and you see, you know, Maurice Smith, and you see Josh Barnett, and you see, you know, Dennis Holman and Jeff Munson, and you know what I mean, and like all these animals, right? Benji Radich and Bristol and God, Brad Blackbird.
Brad Blackburn.
And it's like
When did like Roman Reutberg, was he old
he was
school?
always he was Maurice's guy.
He was Maurice's
That's
guy.
and that's my slice. Roman Reutberg was my slice, and
I always, you know, he was one guy, and I don't know him at all, but I would see him when you were training for some of your fights.
Yeah.
He would come in, and I thought to myself, like, I want to be like that guy one day, in the sense that I would watch that guy, he would come in the room, and he would spar with you. And he would do fucking really well for like one round, right? He would fucking kind of kick the shit out of you. Yeah. You'd be like doing all the rounds, right? And then this fucking dude, old dude, come in.
You know he's not that old.
He's
just got gray hair.
He's like a dentist, and he's doing this shit, and he didn't really train that much. It was like what later.
Yeah.
I would see him. I'm like, I want to be the old person when I'm older, like out of the middle of this, to just like walk back in the room and like hang with dudes, even for one round. I was just like, that guy's a fucking stud. Yeah. And
that was my slice.
There
that was
was
my
so
homie.
many of those guys.
We've been to Japan together a few times. We traveled together. He was awesome. He was really one of my him and Brad Kurtzen from AMC was really my almost like a personal trainer. Matt Hume was my coach, obviously, but Matt Hume had a lot on his plate, right? He had the gym and he had officiating, and he's got a lot of other people, a lot of other fighters that that needed his attention, right? So my guy at the gym was Brad Kurtzen. Brad Kurtzen was really like, he put a lot of attention to me, holding the pads, making sure that I did the techniques, and that it was overlooking my training. And I also with that was Roman Reutberg with Maurice's side on the kickboxing, right? And so it was a situation where we, were able to elevate, what I mean, because we were kind of like touch and go. It was a difficult. It wasn't like a precise science. We were kind of playing with that science at that moment. And right next to AMC was another like sports specific gym called the End Zone. Right? And the End Zone really was like catapulted guys up from AMC. So you were basically doing 2 a days every day. And when you go next door to the End Zone, and Joel Jameson, who's the trainer there, was a little genius. You know what I mean? And that motherfucker will put all these little pods on you and test your sympathetic nervous system, all your little nervous system, everything. It was just like to me,
a science, true science versus just like kind of
right?
do this
your
thing.
Heart rate, your resting heart rate, all these different heart rates, right? And to me, I was like a fucking ape. I'm like, must work out. I gotta work out harder, stronger, hit harder. You know what I mean? Choke more. So, but this kind of tuned it. And that's when we started first working with the Olympic lifting and the sprints and the jumps and all the different types of workouts that were precisely to get you stronger, right? More endurance and a lot of pool workouts, right? So that you wouldn't blast off your joints would give a little bit of a break, right? And so we started diversifying certain trainings, right, that were sports specific to pugilism. And then you had a world caliber gym right next to it. So it was, man, we were in the mix. And then Bob Sapp came in the mix, also came in the mix, coming in from the NFL and from the Pro Wrestling League. And so it was a great time, and it was very, very interesting. But that's the one thing that I took from that, is that it is an equation. And to anybody out there, especially a new guy that's coming through, get out of your comfort level. You need to have that nervous feeling when you walk in. If you're not nervous that your partners around you are not, if they're not choking you, if they're not subbing you, if they're not touching you up, or they're kickboxing, you're in the wrong place. You're in the wrong. If you're not sharpening your iron, right, with other guys that sharpen your iron well, right, you're not being at the best place that you can be at.
Yeah. Especially if your goal is to be the best guy. It's 100% like you need that. You need that push.
You need top level dudes to be top level.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so, and the camaraderie that we got from that, it was amazing. I mean, Josh Barnett. I remember like specifically beautiful moments of us doing the hills up on Capitol Hill. Excuse me, the stairs. Pardon me, the stairs up on Capitol Hill. You know those stairs?
Think so.
Okay.
The backside, or the like where you're going up right over here.
Correct.
Yeah.
Right on the backside of the highway, right, the freeway. And doing those stairs, right, up and down 10 times, boom, up and down, and then we go have fun, right? And it was just little things like that I think that you look back fondly as you get older, of shared workouts and shared attrition with friends that are obviously you've traveled the world with them, you've gone through these big promotions together, but that you remember little things like that, having conversations with your buddy, over soup.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it's a beautiful lifestyle in that way, that you were able to share, these moments with him, and at the same time, you doing these home, you were doing these things at home, and then you'd be setting yourself up for fights in Japan, or you're out in some other place in the world, training together, or going to Indiana or California, wherever the fuck you go and end up in fighting, you know what I mean? You share with these buddies, and it's nice to have that. It really, really is nice to have those experiences. Yeah, you know what I'm talking about.
I know exactly what you're talking about, and that leads me to it's a comment that I can say about you that I think I've been in a lot of gyms, and I've sat back and watched a lot of gyms. I'm in the gym. A lot of times I'll say I kind of feel like an outsider in the gym because for when I came up, I was always the only girl. Yeah. Right, and I was kind of the only girl, and I was like, I just want these guys to let me in the gym.
Yeah.
That was like this, I just got to prove I got to be in here. But then I was, and I was always in the gyms, but I would always kind of just sit back and watch. And one thing that I've always admired about what I thought you did in gyms, when you kind of joke about oh, I'm the fucking heathen, fight. But then earlier, even in this conversation, you're like, oh, I had these plans. I need to come up with this plan, right? And this plans of how I can get to my goal. And I always saw you really good at formulating plans to get to your goals that I didn't always see people where it wasn't well, I want to be a fighter and then I just go do that. You had pretty systematic ideas of how to get there. And then also your ability to lead people and bring people together is fucking fascinating to me. You can really I think it's your enthusiasm. A lot of it's ultra passionate. And I say stuff that I get away with being kind of crazy, but it's well, I can think any of my intensity, if you look at it, I love jujitsu. I have a lot of times I have a love-hate relationship with
right,
jujitsu.
yes.
But you can't hate jujitsu in the way that I hate jujitsu without really loving jujitsu. And of course I love it because even when I hate it, I'm still at the fucking gym talking about it with someone. I'm thinking about it. So one, I just want to say I think I always notice that I'm Ivan is a fabulous leader of people. I see it in your gym, and how you bring people together, that camaraderie that you create in the gym, it comes from you. I don't think you could not do it. I think it, you can feel it coming from you. But I don't want to say it's just this magical thing you have about you.
There's an equation.
What do you equate it to?
There is an equation, and I think one is that obviously you have to be passionate about the sport, right? You have to love the sport, and the sport itself also would direct itself. If you harness it too much, it won't create what I consider this community, right? Because that's what it is. It really is a community. I'm not getting rich off of this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah. None of us are. If we put that much work into any fucking other thing, you'd make more money.
Correct.
Yeah.
So, but I wake up in the morning, right, and I have my little coffee, and I'm gonna get to box and wrestle all day, and that's beautiful to me, right? Yeah. And so I come here, and I have a sense of love. Okay, not just oh, I'm going to job, I'm going to clock in. No, it's not like a task. It's love. I love seeing people strive. You, per se, right? When you walk in, unassuming, small girl, kind of shy, right? And you're rolling around, and you always get this motherfucker, right? Yeah. That's always trying to test you, right? That motherfucker that's always going to be oh, man, I'm stronger, I'm a dude, I'm going to fuck with her. Yeah. Right? And I just sit back, and I laugh my fucking head off because I sit back and I'm like, go ahead, right? And I love it when your eyes are and not only you, but anybody for that matter, when all of a sudden your light goes, look, right? And you start seeing that, fuck this. Yeah. I'm not taking this shit from him. I know what I'm doing here, right? And your technique and your athleticism, right, is going to overtake this, and you're going to make him tap.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to choke him or you're going to break his arm. Whichever it is,
Yeah.
he's going to figure it out soon, right?
Yeah.
And I love seeing that in people, right? And there ain't nothing wrong with losing, because losing is a great lesson.
part of
It's a
that.
great lesson, right?
Yeah.
What happened? Why did she do that to me?
Yeah.
What happened, right?
Yeah.
I'm stronger than her. I'm bigger than her,
Yeah.
right? I'm a blue belt. I'm a blue belt too,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
Whatever it may be, right?
I would do that, and I'd see people, and they'd be like, let's go again.
Yeah.
And they're like doing this fucking mental math, and it's like, okay.
And they try to spike you. Like, I
And they
remember
do
so many
all
times,
kinds of
like,
things,
I'm like,
all
they're trying to
kinds of
bring you
things.
up and spike you and stuff like that.
Absolutely.
You know? So
Yeah.
I remember that. And those are things that, like, to me, if you harness that too much, if you like, no, you can't do this, you can't do that, you don't see that out of people.
Yeah.
Right? But at the same time, how do I describe it? It's just like, you want to make sure that you do it, but at the same time, like at the end, kind of like caress the crowd and go, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah.
You're gonna be okay. This is what you're here
world
for.
isn't shattered
Exactly.
yet.
It's gonna be
You know,
okay.
it's okay. You're still here.
It's okay, right? And
Yeah.
to make them feel comfortable that winning and losing is part of a process,
Yeah.
right? And you gotta enjoy both.
Yeah.
You cannot just enjoy winning.
Nope.
Right? Because losing has a certain gratification, right? There's a lesson behind it. What happened? Why did Rodrigo tap me? Why did Eric Dahlberg tap me?
Yeah.
Why did Josh Barnett tap me? You know what I mean? Why did I get knocked out by, Roman Royberg? Why did Maurice knock me out? What, so you have to like, what happened? What happened? What happened?
Honest self-reflection, if you want to get past it.
Absolutely. And every day when you wake up in the morning and you got to go, am I going to do that again?
Yeah.
Fuck yeah. Fuck yeah. I'm going to do that again. I love this shit.
Yeah.
It's incredible. I love it. So you have to have that in you. You have to reflect, right, of what happened. And I think that's why a lot of people are so attracted to jiu-jitsu, because you can go full out. You can, and it's very cerebral. You know what I mean? You learn these techniques, the foundation of techniques, right? And there's many variations to every one of those techniques,
Yeah.
right? And you can also create your own style, right?
Yeah, everyone's personality can come out in it.
What pertains to your body type,
Yeah.
right? Or you can study somebody else's style,
Yeah.
and say if it works for you, right?
Yeah.
So there's a lot to it, and then you apply it. You apply it on the mats,
Yeah.
right? And to be able to do that, I think it's an awakening to people, and I think that's why people are so attracted to it. And you can do the same thing with MMA. Just MMA is vicious. It's horrible, right?
Yeah.
To get people to get knocked out or get concussed is not cute. It's not cute. You know what I mean?
No.
So that learning curve is a harsh learning curve, which I don't suggest to everybody. I don't suggest it to everybody. I definitely think that's why jiu-jitsu and wrestling and things of that of grappling nature is so much better. That's why I like in my gym more of a wrestling style of MMA than more like boxing, kickboxing, like the attrition of strike. You know what I mean?
That
So,
Muay Thai attrition, like
Yeah.
why even block as much? We're
Elbows
just
and
gonna stand
knees.
and bang, like
Yeah.
holy fuck.
Yeah.
It's okay for a while, I guess, but
and I don't know about you, but I enjoy beautiful subs. Like when I see a guy out there and all of a sudden he gets a beautiful choke or, or beautiful
just
armbar.
slick as fuck and like
Right?
just like
the setup
whoa.
and the transition.
Yeah,
And
just
then,
right
boom, and then
into
he
it.
gets it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's something
Love
like
that.
just very, like I enjoy the elegance of some of this stuff that you're just like, what? It doesn't look brutal, but you know it's brutal.
Yeah.
And it's just like, oh my God, that was amazing.
Yeah, the setup.
Yeah.
I enjoy that thoroughly, and I think that's what I hope that I can create. You know what I mean, with the community that is here with me in this gym. I really do. I mean, I don't care if I get a UFC fighter. If I get him, great. If he wants to be a UFC fighter and then he goes to the UFC, awesome. Thumbs up. But I get so much gratification when I have that young student that's in college that is balancing his fight training, his jiu-jitsu training, his grappling training with college, right? And all of a sudden he's doing both. And then he graduates. And then he gets his first job. And then he gets married, right? And then he has kids. And he's still doing it. He's still doing jiu-jitsu. It's a routine in his life that balances him.
Yeah.
And I find that so beautiful when I have, very successful gentlemen that have been with me for, a decade plus.
You've been coaching, you have that coaching experience now. I have people that it's like, oh, I started coaching you when you're 6. Maybe you didn't stick around the whole. I have some kids that it's like, I met you when you're 5 and you're almost 15.
Yeah.
And I've seen you 5 times a week.
Yeah.
And you have Paulie. You
That's
have
right.
those kids that it's like those relationships and community over time. That's like, when I started jiu-jitsu, I wasn't thinking of anything about that. Anything about this, like I would be a part of a community and be someone, be a mentor to person. Be any of that. I was just like, I want to fucking learn that weird shit that Hoist Gracie was doing. And then what it kind of unfolded into has been pretty remarkable.
I don't know about you, but I find it more gratifying, right? And I love fighting, and I love going to the big shows and all this shit. But the truth is, like, there's nothing that to look at people here that are executives and lawyers and doctors, right? Like Andy Pavez, right?
Yeah.
And all these other guys that have grown up with you and become, good citizens, good people. You know what I mean? And it's nice to see that, right? When
to have a little part of it.
Yeah.
To have some part of it is like rewarding.
And it's not difficult per se, in a sense, like, how would I say? The equation is not difficult, but the day-to-day is a commitment. You know what I mean? Like every day, I'm going to go study. I got to do this. Then I got to go work out. And I got to watch what I eat. I can't go party because if I go party, I'm not going to be able to study well or work out well.
Yeah.
Right? So I like that this environment has created an anchor for a healthier lifestyle, a more rounded human being.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and it's nice. It's nice to see. I mean, I mind you. I mean, like I look at Gina, right? And I'm so proud of her that she's in the UFC and she's doing what she wants, and that's awesome.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I wish her the biggest success on earth. You know what I mean? But there's other things in this environment that create a lot of satisfaction, right? And like what you were talking about, seeing kids. That you know how, like your kids that you know.
I have lots of
kids that are now teenagers, young 20, adults,
21,
right?
I've gone to graduation.
How's that feel?
It's crazy. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I came from I moved around a lot as a kid. Went to 5 junior highs, all over the place. Never really had to like manage relationships over time.
Yeah.
I kind of missed out, I think, on a lot of that. And then jiu-jitsu brought that. Like, this is the longest I've been in a community where I'm like, I have put care into something over time. And more than, like, I won some medals. I did some things. The success of that was nothing to compare to, like, seeing, like, oh, I have the kid to Noach.
Yeah.
And it's like, he'll be my first black belt if I can keep him going from, like, every belt. Every kid's belt through every adult belt. And you look at like it's like a family member, and you look at like them growing up, and it's like
it's a beautiful experience. It's intense, and like you have to respect it.
And I every day, I used to be focused as a fighter or focused on me, and even as like, oh, now I'm being a teacher, and it took me a long time to really what does that mean? What do I want that to mean? It means whatever, many things. What do I really want to make that mean? What kind of environment do I want to create? What kind of like feeling do I want to create for the sport, for my students? And like, thinking like, oh, I have this like opportunity to pass on, characteristics, techniques, just like love of something to all these people.
You hit it on the dot. Character.
Yeah.
Character. Like it makes a big difference when you're bringing up, a young person that has integrity towards themselves, their family, their gym, right? To ask for a little kid to be dedicated to you, to their parents, that are purchasing this time with you on a monthly basis, right? And then that they have to have the good grades, right? Because I know you check for the good grades.
I do all that stuff, and then it's also like, you talk about it's like it's the day-to-day for those people, but it's like I think about what can I do to be the best coach the most important thing I can do is show up every fucking day.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? I don't need to be great every day.
Yeah.
I need to show up every fucking day.
Yeah.
Every day that they're going to show up, I'm going to show up, and we'll get through it.
Yep.
And some days are going to be great. Some days are going to suck.
Yeah.
And we're going to fucking struggle through it. They're going to get here. I'm going to get here. And, you know, you do that for 20 years, and you have something.
Isn't
it
weird to say that to people? Like, when you say to people, like, yeah, there's a, 5 years. 10 years, right? Like when you say that, it's like most people are like, that's a lifetime.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But in this world, it's not.
It's not, and
you know
that's
what I mean?
and I think that's like that lesson for me in life is like, how do you get good at anything? How do you make a strong relationship with any person? Is you show up for that fucking person every day. Right? It's like I stopped like thinking I needed to be good at something every day. Like you need to be 100% every day. No. You need to fucking be present and do the best you can. And, you're not going to be great every day, and you're going to fuck up. Yeah. And I fuck up in class, and I, don't do things the way I would want. And then you show up the next day.
Try it again.
And you try it again, and you
edit it.
And you acknowledge it, and, and then you push through it. Yeah. And that was like, I think that's how you be a great fighter. Yeah. And those lessons of being a great fighter, starting to look at like the discipline of all those little things add up to the discipline of the larger decisions, and that to me is like, I started jiu-jitsu as a fucking sport, and I tell people I don't really even consider myself, never like I was a martial artist. I was a fucking punk rock kid. I didn't fucking like any of that shit. Yeah. And now I'm like, no, there's something to
the martial arts world.
To the specialness of what you're doing. What you're doing and the opportunity, what you can do within the sport. What else can you pass on? Yeah. And it's a little hippie, and but it's like, no.
And I told you, like,
you need that.
And you know me, and we've talked about this before. Like, I've always considered myself like a freaking ape, right? A little Neanderthal. Oh, must fight, like fighting, fight. But also the body can't, doing this stuff, the body can't do this anymore as it used to. Right? And so and all of a sudden it's like, okay, you need to start working around this. Yeah. How do I do the things that I do that I love to do without taxing it to the extent where you're going to damage it permanently, right? And so, I've been, like, I know that you do.
We're at that point now.
Absolutely.
We're at that point.
And that's why I'm like doing certain things that a lot of people are looking at me like, Coach, what are you doing? That's why we're doing the oil wrestling, and
maybe I need to come oil wrestle because there's a lot of things. That's why I obsessively bike ride and do stuff. Is like, if I want to be in this room, man, it was hard enough. Look at me. I'm not the toughest person in any room, And it's like, if I wanted to be even healthy in the room, now I'm not. I'm old. Yeah. I need to actually take this time to understand other things,
Correct.
And
nutrition,
stretching,
all these different like detail stuff that are more for rehab or maintenance versus the attrition of training to battle, right? And so that's to, especially after my hip replacement, that has been an awakening. You know what I mean?
Fuck, Ivan, were you like terrified when you had to get it? Like,
no.
Tell me about it. Tell me about the process.
Well,
the mental process.
The hip replacement was an understanding that kicking shit too hard for too many years, day in, day out, it's going to deteriorate a joint. Yeah. It's that simple, right? Yeah. So, and in hindsight, I was like, man, that's the one thing I can tell you, that there's a lot of things that, we did as pioneers of the sport, maybe we shouldn't have done, right? And the fact that too hard, too much, you know what I mean? Like, there could have been smarter ways, less damaging, right? Less deteriorating to your body. Yeah. That you can do. You can be very sharp at boxing, kickboxing, wrestling, submission wrestling, jiu-jitsu, without taking that much deterioration.
Totally.
You know what I mean? So I know a lot of guys that have shoulder problems, right? Hip problems, back problems, knee problems, obviously elbow problems, right? All kinds, especially joint, ligament, tendon issues, right? And so once I found out that, first of all, it's like, it was a slow thing, right? Little by little, you're just like, oh, my hip inside, ooh, that went hurt. And then it's like, slowly, it wasn't working the way it used to, right? And there was more pain, and there was, there was less movement. There was the rotation, the flexibility, the strength. My butt cheeks started shrinking. I was like, oh my God, this is fucking horrible,
Yeah.
right? Especially because you know how, like, as a fighter,
You're in tune with all that shit.
and you look at yourself, you're like, why is my butt cheek so small? Why is I can't? When I'm hobbling, I'm literally wobbling while I'm walking, which is awkward.
Why is that old lady passing me? I've had that where it's like, holy shit, the 90-year-old held the door for fucking me.
That's right. And then you start having like realizations, like, okay, I need to do something. So I mean, I went to the doctor, and the doctor recommended me to this specialist, and the same thing with the MRI, and they're like, hey, listen, you ain't got no joint. You're going bone on bone. It is what it is, right? Yeah. So you can either live with this for a little bit longer, or we can get a hip replacement. Let's do this hip replacement. Boom. So the hip replacement was no joke. I mean, like they went into my leg, right, and they removed a portion of my femur, and then they spiked in the ball and socket side onto my femur, and then on the female side for the hip, right, they screwed in the socket, and then they popped it back in, and then they closed me back up, and thank goodness, because the truth of the matter is that it was a new lease on life. It was beautiful. The fact of the matter is that for the first time, I didn't feel pain in my hip in forever.
Yeah,
I was like,
you're like, I don't even know what this new feeling of no pain is.
Because it's a mechanism.
Yeah.
And, it's like you don't have a joint anymore. Yeah. It's a mechanism. So that there's no feeling in it. There's no, you know what I mean? And like, it's incredible. And then little by little, you just start working out, and they walk you right away. So you're walking already. And little by little, you start, doing the exercises, the little small muscle fiber exercises. Then you start developing a little bit more. And then little by little, I was able to, go into what I love to do. And, a little bit of wrestling, a little bit of jiu-jitsu, but gently. I mean, super gently, like nothing harsh. And, right? And obviously, no more kicking. And I love kicking. And that was sad to say goodbye to it. You know what I mean? Because I love kickboxing. But it is what it is. You know what I mean? It is what it is. And I think
you saved all the other things for that sacrifice.
And it's sometimes, especially in the sport, you have to recognize what is and what isn't.
Yep.
And if you don't do that, you're going to end up in a wheelchair. Yeah. You're going to end up in a much worse state if you don't recognize that, guess what? It is time to make changes in your life, right?
Yeah.
And I suggest anybody in any sport, in any situation, to be able to have that ability to recognize what is important in your life and what has to be done, right?
It's hard to recognize it. I took that silly fight, that MMA fight. It's like I recognized it, and then I was like, yeah, one more. Yeah, one more.
How did you feel from that?
Dude, well, I was in a place where I couldn't even... I wasn't training like with the intensity that I knew I should be. I can't even come close. Like, fucking my knee's terrible. But it was like, I came back from a massive shoulder rebuild from blowing out my shoulder, and I started boxing to rebuild my shoulder. And I started training with this Russian judo dude that taught me some Cuban boxing. Yeah. And I was like, someone offered me a fight, and I'm like, well, that's where I can test out that boxing I've been using. Yeah. But it was just like, I knew it was dumb the whole time. It was like, this is not a smart decision. Yeah. But it was like, but this is what I do, and I like doing this, and I want to do it. I want to try. And I was like, training with people, I'm like, well, waiting for someone to beat me up. Yeah. I did a few things, and like, was like, why hasn't anyone beat me up? I went to like the UFC tryouts and tapped out some girl. I'm like, fucking, I was hoping someone kind of put the nail in the coffin. Yeah. And I was like, I know I'm not at this level, and then it was like, well, I'm going to go and try. And it was actually very cathartic. I was kind of stoked in this way. Like, okay, everyone out here isn't, with girls' pool, I think it's different because it's like, where are all the girls? There's got to be a fucking girl that's going to fucking crush me. Yeah. And then I found her, and then I was like, good. There it is. I got massively concussed at the fight, like really bad. I like developed a stutter for a while.
Really?
Like after my fight, I got, like, you couldn't tell, but when I got back to the back, I had the weird, like,
your eyes,
dilated pupils, fucking puking, and they were like, it was kind of a thing where they were like, you need to rush her to the hospital, some bullshit at the show. They didn't. They want, I was like, can they just drive me? They're like, no, you need the ambulance because you might have the brain bleed. And it was like pretty fucking crazy.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, oh, fuck. And it's just like, Cindy.
Could you just take me to the hospital?
Just be done with this. The whole thing was just a hot mess. And, you just lose a fight, too. You want people to, like, get the fuck away from me.
Yeah.
Let me have a moment.
Yeah.
Covered in fucking puke now. And all these people standing. It's like, the fuck away from me. I'm going to be fine. Finally, I was like, the fuck away from me. I had John from Tacoma, my husband, down into the ex-husband down. John's coming to get me. John, just take me to your fucking house. And
let's go. Let's get out of here. Yeah.
You're a person I'm close to. Let's just get the fuck out of here. All these other people just want the fuck out of here. Yeah. You're going to just let me do what I want to do.
But okay, this is what I miss it.
I miss it
like fucking crazy. Like I miss, first like what you're talking about, the preparation. But you know that you're not going to be able to prepare correctly in that situation. But you still miss and enjoy that countdown of how the camp goes.
The grind of there's
something the nervousness, the mental.
Coming in here, this was one of the places where it was like that hard fucking training.
Yeah.
The hard, like there's a grind to that. I will joke with people. I'm like, I used to try and sell memberships to my gym, and I would tell people like these things like, I love fucking struggle, and it was way too much. Fucking way too much for people. Tone that fucking shit down, Cindy.
Yeah.
No one's gonna join. But that's like, there's a segment of people that it's like that's what it's about.
Yeah.
It's about everything, but what it is about is like, dude, I like to get in that zone.
Yeah.
And you like that.
I also, narcissistically, I also enjoy the crowd. You know what I mean? Like, I love, when there's nothing like being in a cage and you hear, right? And you're like, it's like that stuff to me, like at the Mandalay or at when you're
blowing kisses,
right? And just like and the whole
you're
crowd,
that guy.
I love that. It's awesome, and so. I miss the lights and the flash and all that stuff to a certain extent, but there's also realization and then
you watch that movie The Wrestler and you're like, I don't want to be that.
No.
Right? That's what I think about Cindy. Don't do that because it's similar.
And also the application to business, right? Because you can sell that concept to fighters, right? Because they like it, they enjoy it. They're like, oh my God, I want to do that, right?
Yeah.
But the business of martial arts is very, very different, and I also got an understanding of that real quick because I'm very fortunate to be in a place in Seattle where it's a boom. It's a boom
There's
town.
Money. There's money to be spent.
And there's so many people. I mean, I'm literally in the middle of Amazon campus. I got the two buildings in front of me are Facebook, right? Every other building is a cancer research or a biomed research, right? Yeah. So there's a bunch of people here, like massive amounts of people that are highly intelligent, well-incomed. You know what I mean? Like, you can't ask for a better business place. You know what I mean?
Yeah, school.
So I don't have to chase around anybody for money. I don't have to be like, hey, dude, you got your membership? Like, these like fighter, gyms that you have to like, hey, dude, you got your money? None of that. So I don't have to worry about that. But also because of it, my clientele is not a bunch of guys that are, looking for the UFC to be the ultimate thing in their life. You know what I mean?
How was the transition for you from fighter to business owner?
It was slow because first the business was a situation that helped me be a fighter because I was training to fight. I was still fighting.
Yeah.
Right. And so slowly, because I'm just getting older and deteriorating, and then I was like, man, I can't keep this up in a sense of like being at high level athleticism. And maintain the business. But the business itself kind of dictated to me because the people around the neighborhood was changing. It wasn't these warehouses that it was back in the day. It is a campus of highly intelligent people that and this is not warehousing. This is not Amazon
this
warehouses.
This isn't what it was when you put the school in.
No, but even the people that are from Amazon, these are not like warehouse people.
No, it's not distribution center.
Exactly. These are like extremely intelligent people with multiple degrees, right? Yeah. So like I had to like change up what I was trying to, teach and what I was trying to portray out there. And so there's a big distinction, and I still have passion for my fighters, but there's a big distinction what as a a lifestyle of martial arts versus a life of pugilism is, right? So life of pugilism is you are living to fight. You are living to get paid you want to fight to get paid, right? Whereas a martial arts lifestyle is you are working, right? You might have a family, you may have some studies, you may have some projects, whatever you may be, and this enhances your life, right? Boxing enhances your life, kickboxing enhances your, jiu-jitsu enhances your life, wrestling enhances your, the community of where you're doing this enhances your life, right? And so, and that was something that I had to learn in a slower transition, but it was, I was almost reluctant of it, right? That I was like, no, I don't want to let go of my fighters, of my
the
guys,
old school ways.
right? And then I would look at the mat, and it'd be like 6 people, right? And it's like, and all these killers, and like, and so I had,
then we don't have any money.
So I was like, okay, this is real estate in Seattle is not, it's not inexpensive. It's expensive. So I had to make choices, and so we started looking at the kickboxing differently. We started looking at making sure that people weren't just going into grappling, into jiu-jitsu by just jumping in and being killers. You had to break it down. You had to create a curriculum. You had to look at who you're matching people with who, right? First they had to get a base of technique, a base of knowledge before they even start. So all these things, like, it wasn't just like I need athletic dudes to roll, go in there and roll. You know what I mean? It was no longer that anymore.
Yeah.
So I had to create these certain things that were able to sustain the business that I have now. And I'm super lucky.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? I'm super lucky that I have what I have, and especially at the time that I had it. So.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah, I'm always excited, and I, like, even for myself, like, I like seeing the people, like, who are able to make it a career, because I think it's, a lot of people are like, oh, it's easy. It's like, no, it's not easy.
Not even close.
It's very, very hard.
Yeah.
And to do it well is even harder.
Yeah.
To do it sustainable over long periods of time, to, like, continue the leadership of those teams and all of that. It's not easy.
Yeah.
And so it's like, I'm really excited, like, seeing the old school guys that it's like deserve, I think, to have that opportunity.
I mean, just for an example, I mean, like, years and years ago, this was 1997, 96 or something like that. Me and Rodrigo were at the bus stop. Rodrigo's, at this moment, the big Northwest Gracie Baja regional guy, right? So, but back in the day, he was a little blue belt and I was a white belt, and we were at the bus stop, and we were like, dude, what do you want to do with this? And he's like, I want to be a black belt, and I want to have my gym. Cool, right? I was like, okay, cool. It's like, what do you want to do? And he's like, what do you? I want to be in the UFC.
Yeah.
Right? And think about that. That was 1996, right?
Yeah.
And we made it happen. Not only did we make it happen, but we did very well with it, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I look at, Rodrigo, and I look at what he's got right now and how he's gotten. It's like beautiful. I mean, you can't. His ability to transition from, not only being a black belt, but to being able to have all these gyms and to be able to, create all these black belts in this community, like a huge community, is beautiful, right?
Yeah.
The fact that I was able to go to the USU, go to K1, right, and travel the world and create my own gym and have what I have, it's awesome. Like, it's remarkable, the fact that, like, we were able to make our lives, out of this, and like, we chiseled away at this, and we made it happen.
You made that thing you were talking about at the bus stop true.
Yeah, absolutely.
I remember quitting my job at Starbucks, telling people I'm going to go be a jiu-jitsu world champion. And they were just
what?
were just like, what the fuck? Yeah. You're just a crazy person. You're quitting.
Yeah.
It's like, and then, like, 15 years later, that Seattle Weekly thing came out, and people called me from there, and they were like,
you made it happen.
You did it. And I'm like, yeah, fuck yeah, I did. I told you I was doing it.
Yeah.
And it was, like, crazy, because I didn't even think I was going to do it when I said it.
Yeah.
It was like I wanted to do it, but I didn't. Yeah. I was like, I'm just going to say this to try and, like, make it materialize, but I just said it enough in my mind.
Yeah.
Like, you just keep doing it. And I love being around people that it's like, oh, we all kind of did that. Like, I feel really fortunate. It's kind of like you going into AMC and you're just like, oh, I'm seeing all these people. You were kind of one of those people, Rodrigo for me, all these people that's like, oh, we're going to go do this and we're doing it.
Right.
And it happened and I didn't really, think any of those things. I didn't plan for them to happen initially, but it's like, I hope this thing happens. How fucking rad would that be?
Come
And
on,
then
no,
it
man.
did.
Like, come on. You were a kick-ass girl, but you were kicking ass. Like, that's like the that's I know you don't see this. You do in a sense, but I'll see it from the outside.
It's hard to see of stuff yourself.
I see it from the outside.
I feel like I'm the
rolling,
afraid
you
person.
rolling up dudes was the shit. Like deep down inside, there was a crew of dudes. I don't know if you ever saw it, but there was a crew of dudes that always like walked around and just like sat back and watched you, and just you tapping it. We were like inside. We were like, we were like, we're just laughing inside. Like she tapped his ass out. It's like yeah, you know what I mean? And you'd be like, ugh. And then you calm down. Right? And then start over again.
Yeah.
Like,
Send another one into Cindy.
It was nice to see, man. It was just cool, man. And like, and, you were a pioneer for a lot of females out there that, were able to, catapult out of here as well. You know what I mean?
I talk to people now and it's like, they're like, I've talked to some girls or like being on the Dirty Dozen thing that I got. It's like, what? And then I think about it and it's like, oh no. I was one of those people, those first people.
Yeah, yeah.
And I did it in my mind. I'm still like, oh no, I'm pretty sure I'm gonna get crushed tomorrow, But it's like, oh no. When I take a step back, it's like, dude, I was in all those rooms with all those killers. Yeah. It was very, very exciting in a lot of ways.
Yeah.
Just to be a part of it. Like I think back now, and where I came from, it was a very unlikely thing for me to walk into those rooms of killers. I was a feminist riot girl. Non-fighter.
The thing about it also is that you were exploring things that uncharted waters.
Yeah.
Literally, you were like blindly going through this dark room, figuring out where you fit in this pugilistic world, right? As a female, and just kind of like blindly going through it. But you pushed through it. You saw the light.
And I know there was a lot of people, a lot of different times. You saw some of my rough times, and it was like, I know these motherfuckers think I'm just gonna like go away.
But that's what happens. No. But that's what happens normally.
I know
that's
it does.
What happens normally.
But
they couldn't get you away.
You got those calls. Ivan, can I come over? Can I come to your gym and train at your gym for a while? Yeah. Come in. And it's that's what you do.
I was very lucky to have a crew of females for a little bit. I had a crew of females that was the shit, right? I had obviously Gina Mazzani, and I had Thea.
Thea was training.
What's the girl from Jersey?
You had the Elena. You had her.
Lena. She's still here.
Lena. It's a New Jersey. Oh, you had Tara over here.
Tara and La Rosa. That's right.
Yeah. I forgot she was here. That's what she showed up in town right when I was hurt.
Yeah.
And I remember just being like, "Well," because she was down at Ring Demon sometimes. She'd show up everywhere I wanted her to be, where I wanted to be. Yeah. But it was when I was having my neck surgery. Yeah. It's like. I've watched that girl on TV. She's one of my she was the girl that I watched, her and Megumi and stuff. Just like, dude, those girls. I want to be those girls.
Well, I had a good little crew, and what's her name? There was a few other ladies that came through, and it was nice. It was a good situation. We had a good crew, and it was nice to see that some of them kind of like took off. Yeah. I mean, obviously, Tara at that time was on the downside of her career, right? Yeah. But it was just nice to have her.
She was at tail end a little bit. Yeah.
Yes, and to have her experience and to have her, her knowledge I was grateful for that. You know what I mean? Because she was one of the first female MMA fighters out there that was successful at
Hook and shoot.
Yeah.
Yeah. Her, Amanda Buckner. There was just a few girls, and it was Roxanne Madafri and stuff, and then Misha showing up. Misha,
that's
Lisa.
right.
Up here there was always like some girls coming out. Yeah.
Yeah. Wow, it was good times. We had good times. There was obviously right now, Lena's still doing her thing. Gina's still doing her thing, right? Theo just got over 2 shoulder surgeries.
But she's doing all her art shit.
Yeah.
She's like an amazing artist.
Yeah.
Her Ween coloring book. Ween coloring book part 2. Yeah. I also just like even when people, it's like okay that just are like hobby jujitsu. It's like a lot of weirdos. And I mean that in the best way. Like a lot of really interesting people show up in jiu-jitsu rooms.
Yeah.
I met like all kinds of people. You know who I really like? One of my favorite people from your gym is Flavin.
Johnny.
Oh, man. I'm a fan. I'm a fan of Flavin.
Awesome.
And,
He's crazy.
I like, me and him argue, and then it's just like, come on, Flavin. I like all the stuff he does.
The thing about I love about Johnny is that he's very old school, right? And a lot of people don't like that harsh, like yelling and slapping your butt and like, yo, you gotta go, like old school fucking coach from high school, college years, right? But I think that I enjoy it. You enjoy it. Everybody enjoys it because it pushes you to that limit where you know that you're exhausted, you're tired, and you have that extra. You have that much more to take him down or to push through that agony, right? And I love him. I mean, I've known him for
and I would say it about him, and I almost even about you. It's like, okay, you're a Neanderthal, but you guys have the nice side. I think, I think there's the other side on some of it. I know, like, all these things, I train Johnny's kids.
Yeah.
And I see Johnny as, like...
Dad.
Well, I see Johnny here. Fucking go! Ah! And when they first brought the kids over, I'm like, Johnny, I don't allow people to coach. I don't allow it.
And for the kids program, of course.
Yeah. For the kids program, I don't coach in that way.
Yeah.
I am like.
So you had to tone him down.
And what I'll say about Johnny, and I have to tone down a lot of the parents.
Yeah.
And I watch Johnny over there like.
Steaming.
Dude, but he kept his cool.
Yeah.
He held it together. He never was that dad. He wasn't that dad.
Yeah.
And it's like I can see like all the potential in the world. I would probably I would want to not be that dad, but I might be that dad.
Yeah.
It's like
I'm not coach for the gym.
I get like that, and
Yeah.
I'm like, I try not to coach that way. I think it's like just like
But
a personality
you're
thing.
very cool when you coach your team.
I'm,
You know what I mean? You're very cool, collected. You're very technical. You say
I coach in a different way.
I'm a spaz.
I coach.
You know what I mean?
I've gone through that thing, and it's like and it's just a personal thing because I don't know if it's not a judgment thing. It's just like I don't know if it's helpful for them when I get all fucking riled up.
Yeah.
And I feel that sometimes like I'll say like when people do that to like, and it's I think maybe a function of part of being a girl. All the fucking guys, and I'm like trying to run through all the guys that don't, and then, sometimes I'll like have like if I just want to like have a regular roll with a guy, but then someone else comes in and starts doing that chatter.
Yeah.
Well, of course they're gonna respond, right? And then I have to go harder, and we get pumped up, and I'm like, dude,
Stop!
I don't wanna do this, and you're creating an impossible situation, and then I'm gonna go berserker, and then one's like, why'd Cindy go so fucking crazy? It's like, well, I had that down.
I had my ear.
If you start chewing on me, I'm gonna like do it, So now I go with like my kids,
Have you gone to see Johnny at work at all?
I haven't. I looked at his website and I saw like Johnny, classical violinist.
Totally.
Oh, Johnny.
Boston College graduate.
Yeah, and I've done. He's helped me with some projects I've had with kids.
Yeah.
And like done things, and I know things that Johnny does in communities. And I'm big into that. It's like, and I'm really big into. I like when you find those things out about people that you see one kind of person. You see this kind of person that they show in one room.
Yeah.
And then you realize, like, people are more nuanced than the one thing you see.
Absolutely.
They're doing many other things, and
That's the duality of Coach Johnny. Is that
I like it.
Well, yeah, I go because he's got a big portion of the. What's that big building?
The one of the big like towers downtown.
Yes,
yeah. I've been to his like hotel, his like elevator in one of those fancy buildings, and he's like a high level.
Yeah, I went to go visit him. I went to go visit him, right? So I went out to whatever floor he's like in this like 30 or something floor.
Yeah.
And he's got like 3/4 of that floor is his and his business, right? And I'm walking in there like Johnny, and he's like. Shh. He's like, shh, shh. Like, what? What's going on? What? He's like, no. Relax, buddy. It's like, what? No. No, exactly. And I'm like, what? Like, buddy, come on, Johnny, this is you. It's like, no. It's like, no, we'll go. And he takes me out to the restaurant in the building, right?
Yeah.
And passing everybody, good morning, Mr. Flavin. Hello, Mr. Flavin. Yeah. Hello, how are you? And he's all returning back these nice little greetings. And I'm like, and I'm looking at him like, Mr. Flavin, fuck out of here with Mr. Flavin. Johnny! Like this.
Yeah.
And he takes me out to the restaurant.
To Smith Tower is what it is, isn't it?
Yes.
Smith Tower,
Yes. And it was, it's awesome. Because, I mean, he definitely has that duality. You know what I mean? He's a complete businessman, you know what I mean, in downtown Seattle.
Yeah.
And but here he lets his hair down.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
He gets to be the other side of it. And I like seeing him with his kids. It's my funniest kid story with him is, Johnny brings him on Saturdays. And they get there like 30 minutes late every time. One day the wife brings the kids.
On time.
The little daughter. It's like, what part of class is this part? I don't think this is the wrong class. I'm like, no, this is the warm-up.
This is the beginning. This is what you're supposed to be.
You just never made it here.
Oh, my God.
And then the next week, it's like back to 30 minutes late. Johnny's back. He was like off on business or something. And I'm like telling the wife, like, oh, yeah, Johnny's never been here this time.
What's he do, man? It's like, oh, my God, he's going to get coffee, donuts.
Yeah, Saturday morning at 10 and Johnny's busy. Yeah, so it's like.
Oh, my God, that's funny.
Yeah, that makes me laugh. Well, Ivan, let me think. I'm going to check all my other questions because I kept you here for a long time. Well, mainly, do you have anything kind of you want to add? Like, what are your goals in the future, and where do you see yourself still in your love affair with jiu-jitsu? You still in a love affair with jiu-jitsu?
Yeah, but differently. My love of jiu-jitsu is more of community, and also my affiliation with Marcelo is important, that we're creating, a good, strong community through Marcelo Alonso Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and Carlson Gracie. How do you say, nostalgia? You know what I mean? Like that.
Let me ask you this, because this is like kind of one of the whole credentials here is, when did you get your black belt under Marcelo?
About 2 years ago. 2.5 years ago.
2.5 years ago.
Yeah.
So full Carlson Gracie. That's a cool legacy.
Yeah. I mean, it's very, very nice to have that lineage, right? Just because I also know these guys in Carlson Gracie, right? I know Alan Goes. I've trained and I fought against Murilo Bustamante and all these other guys that were part of the Carlson, Gracie champion factory. Rolled with them in Abu Dhabi when it was in Abu Dhabi.
You went to one of the first ones.
Yeah,
through
1999. 1999, I went to Abu Dhabi. So it was intense. But right now for the community, or just like to keep it growing, right? Because I think that everybody has their need of jiu-jitsu in their own way. Let it be a businessman, let it be his wife, let it be the children, let it be a young woman, let it be an older gentleman, let it be whatever it may be in a part of your life, whoever you may be. That jiu-jitsu will benefit you, right? It will benefit you if you let it benefit you, right? And also that in the future for me, I think it's just like building this community, right? That that I'll be remembered as somebody fondly in their life later on, right? So when my kids are older, they're gonna remember Dad as, oh wow, Dad was cool, he taught us this and he taught us that. We had a great time with all these guys, right? All these fighters and all these jiu-jitsu players, and had a great time. And anybody in this gym, I hope they have that feeling. Remember that time we were at Ivan's? That was cool. Right? Yeah. It's just like, a portion of your life. It could be 5, 10, 15 years, whatever it may be, but that they enjoyed this and they look at it fondly. You know what I mean? Even through the attrition of jiu-jitsu itself, that they look at it as like, wow, that was a good time in my life.
Yeah, good memories.
Good memories, exactly. Good memories, good friendships. Yeah. Right? Like us. Yeah. Like, we've known each other for so many years and we're friends. Yeah. You know what I mean? And we know each other. And that I wish that on everybody. Yeah. Right? That they have the ability to have friends of 10, 15, 20 years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
It's something special that I think is people are missing a little bit.
Yeah. You know, I remember I was sweating on you. You're like, oh, you pig.
Oh, I remember you like in your cup, chase me around, pouring cup sweat on me, thinking it was hilarious. Yeah.
And just like the fact that we've shared moments in time, like little snapshots. Click,
Yeah.
right? Click.
Yeah.
I remember when I was up in Ballard, you know, training up there,
Yeah.
and you know, seeing all you guys. You know what I mean? And you know,
Yeah, that's where I first met you. Was at the Ballard
Jiu-Jitsu.
Firehouse
Yeah,
one.
yeah.
Yeah, before it was even like High Life and all that other shit. It was the Firehouse.
Yeah.
They used to have shows.
The Ballard Firehouse.
Downstairs.
That's right.
I saw shows down there before I ever even trained there.
Yeah. And then Greg Jones took me
Yeah.
in. I was having a little problem,
Yeah.
and he took me in, and he, you know, and like there's little snapshots of life that we've had together, right? And rolling and sweating and you know and this beautiful, interesting life of jiu-jitsu, you know, will create, you know, lasting relationships and friendships.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and
Yeah.
that's what I wish for people. That's what it's about. You know what I mean? And unfortunately, today's life, you know what I mean? You know, you see people like, you know, putting in 10, 11, 12 hours at work in front of a computer, right? Not really talking to somebody, or if they do, it's very, very little. So they don't get to hang out. They don't get to, you know, roughhouse. They don't get to, you know, create relationships.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? In that
Even
way.
have any sense of community. And a lot of those people move here from wherever to work at
Yeah.
Facebook and Google and all those places. And it's like, yeah, that kind of service that I think our gyms and the sport offer is like another thing I never really even saw initially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's you know how many times I get like thanking, you know what I mean? And it's almost awkward to hear, you know what I mean, that you're having somebody thank you for changing their life. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's, you know what I mean? And you have to respect it, you know,
Yeah.
and that you have to be like, wow. But it's almost, it's like a little irk, like, wow, did I really do that? It's
I've
like,
had that feeling.
you
And
know
the
what I mean?
first time I got one of those emails, and it was from like a kid who, you know, I honestly was like a kid who maybe came to my program for a year, 10 years earlier. And they were like, you totally changed my life in that time in my life.
Right,
And it was
yeah.
like, that's when I started really thinking about the impact. Like,
Yeah.
this is a gift bigger than any of the like medals. This is a gift to impact people,
Yeah.
you know? And how do you want to do that responsibly, Cindy?
Yeah.
You need to like really not handle this carelessly.
Yeah.
You know, because it's people and it's people's feelings, and you've had feelings like that, and you didn't want to be handled carelessly
Yeah.
when you were doing something
But even
like
in
that.
hindsight, you look at it like, almost in awe, like, what did I do?
Yeah.
Right? What did
I
I do
never
in that,
even
in
knew I
that,
was
in that
doing
period
anything.
of time that he, 10 years later,
Yeah.
emailed you and like
Out of the blue.
appreciated the fact that you impacted his life the way you did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And that's intense. I mean, to
That's
really think
intense.
about it, to hear that, you know what I mean? You know, I mean, I've had many different variations, and it's sad to say this because, you know, I mean, there's so many people out there that are just not taking care of themselves, their body, their diet, right? And they're unfortunately they're dying in front of that computer, right? And
Yeah.
they're like hours and hours in front of a screen and not being able to touch somebody and communicate with somebody, and it's like. It's weird, you know what I mean? Like, to me at least, you know what I mean?
I think it is, and I think it's like, it's marginalizing for people. Do you know what I mean? It's making people like, oh, they're in these communities, they're at work, they're doing all this, but it's like they're not interacting.
No.
And it's like I see kids like that are interacting with games, and I don't have like anything like 100% against games, but it's like, but they shouldn't be iPadding all the time.
Hours and hours and hours. Imagine that those hours transition to jiu-jitsu,
Yeah.
or communicating or talking.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Just like it's
And talking to someone you're seeing, not talking through a headset to someone. Do you know what I mean?
Correct.
There's a lot of these like things getting so many other layers in between the communication that it's like, well, no wonder a lot of things are pretty crazy because people don't know how to communicate.
Yeah.
You know, and I've started, politics aside, it's like the world's a little crazy, and I think a lot of it comes from those problems of like,
we're losing our
People
sense of
don't get
communicating,
that.
like you were
Yeah.
saying. Eye contact.
Yeah.
Like seeing your shoulders. There's little nuances as
Yeah.
a human being, as a human animal.
yeah,
that
are
you-
they relaxed? Are they happy? Are they pulling away?
Yeah, and it's like you're losing these nuances that allow you to communicate with another human being.
Yeah.
Right. And so I'm hoping that, you know, these type of businesses,
Yeah.
right, allow you to get that back, right?
To reestablish those for people.
And to be able to, you know what I mean, like, you know, to move our bodies together without, you know, without you being like, oh, that's awkward, that's weird. No, it's not weird. I'm kicking ass. I'm doing well.
Yeah.
Or you know what I mean? What am I doing? So you learning to understand your body, learning to look at somebody after you're done. That was a good match. You know what I mean? And a little dad. You know what I mean? A little dad, and being able to talk and have friends that are gonna be there for you and be with you for years.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's what I'm really hoping that people get out of it, you know what I mean, from, you know, in the long run. You know what I mean? That the smallness of human interaction.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you know, like another one of those things, and I think I put myself into a hyperspace of that and moving to Gold Bar.
Yeah.
You know, it was like, okay, I need to go, and I think there's a power in being alone and introspective, but then like, oh, I need some fucking human interaction. And I'm in that unique situation of like, I have human interaction, but a lot of it's like, I'm Professor Cindy, and I know that's a little skewed in interaction. So it's like, you know, the podcast is part of that. Like, oh, I can go get all these stories that need to be captured and get some human interaction and hear what other, you know, most black belts, I think, have pretty interesting stories.
Yeah.
You know, people who will endure that have some, so a special person in a lot of ways, like yourself. Like, what brought you to the, you know, like all these stories of like the things you see beyond the sport, beyond the monthly tuition and all of these things is the stories behind people.
Who do you feel right now is like the innovators of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu?
You know, I haven't been following it probably as much as I should follow it. I really like Leandro Lowe. I'm fascinated a little bit by that Cicero Costa team. You know, the Leandro Lowe, I think the Meows kind of initially came out of there.
Correct.
I'm fascinated by kind of those.
Are they out of Sao Paulo? Where they?
It's some small gym. You know, it's one of those neighborhood favela gyms.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Have you seen pictures of it?
No.
It's tiny. And
Really?
shitty. It's like
And tiny and shitty.
I mean that, and like
sometimes it's a good combo.
That's what I mean. It's not the gym that you know.
Yeah.
It's one of those gyms that it's like that guy produced tons of champions, and they started out of that space. And
it's amazing that shit like that happens. Like I remember the first time I went to Carlson Gracie in Copacabana.
He was one of those guys that did that.
Dude, it was incredible. Like I was walking out. It was summertime over there, so it was wintertime here.
Yeah.
And it was 95 degrees already, and it's like 11 o'clock in the morning, right? And I'm like walking, and I'm already like drip, like off my nose. Walk upstairs, because it was upstairs, right, from a juice place or like little hamburger place, right?
Yeah.
And walk upstairs, and it was like literally like a smaller matted area, right? It's not big, right? With these windows, with these little motherfucking fans like this big.
Yeah.
Like,
the little like pop top window or something.
Totally like that. And they were like, and I was like, useless. What the fuck is that fan for?
Yeah.
And it was intense. And you could smell it was chemically, right? And so all those dudes were like juicing hard back in the day, and it was like, oh my god, Vitor Belfort, right? Murilo Bustamante, right? All these fucking like stud after stud. You know what I mean?
Just the stable of them.
Mario Sperry, like Valigi, right? All these dudes.
Yeah, because Carlson back in the day, that was one of those MMA teams.
Yeah.
And then it turned to that Brazilian top team. A lot of those guys.
And watching that room.
Yeah.
Was intense, because they would like, and he's like, he did said something in Brazil. Obviously, you start right.
Yeah.
It's like these fucking like tigers going against each other. You know what I mean? And it's intense jiu-jitsu, going hard, right? In a hot room, and I mean, it must have been 100 or plus in that room, because I was sitting down and I was dripping sweat and I wasn't moving, and I had shorts and a tank top. You know what I mean? And these guys were in full gi, right? Intense, right? Bop, right? And after 5 minutes, boop, next, right? And some of the guys stayed on the mats, and there was other guys that were fresh coming in. You know what I mean? And they were just torching these motherfuckers, right? But they were, because they were kicking ass. So those little small dingy rooms like that out of nowhere, right? But it just,
that's where the magic happens.
Who's in that room?
Who's in that room? And then people think later, like, oh, I need to go, and it's like, that magic is already passed. By the time you
Yeah.
start hearing about that and
Yeah.
stuff, it's like, but I think another one of the like teams like that over time was that, you know, like the Alliance, the old Alliance, or what, Gurgel and
Yeah.
Calvante or whatever, that created like that. Out of that came like Atos
Jacare.
and all, you know, all the top teams of today
Yeah.
came out of that guy's era, you know, and it's just like I'd really like to go back and see some of those old school.
Marcelo Garcia was at a
Marcelo,
Gurgel, right? That's
yeah,
right. That's right.
and you know, it was like Alliance, Atos, Marcelo Garcia, Cobrinha, all those guys came out of the same room too. Like, you know, I don't know what that room is now. Alliance.
It was Alliance, yeah.
Alliance, and then you know, and Atos has some great guys. I'm just, yeah. Who are your favorite jiu-jitsu guys now?
Well,
Do you have any like? Are you following any of that?
I've always admired and loved Eddie Bravo. Always,
Okay,
and
yeah.
there were so many Brazilians for a while that were just like bad talking him, and they're like, "Oh, you're just a high guard, a high guard," and I'm like, "No, papito, man, this motherfucker's got something going on."
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And the moment that he took off his jacket, right, and that he had a strong base of jiu-jitsu through the Machado brothers, right, but the fact that he innovated, and I've always said that, I was like, years ago, I was like, he's innovating shit. The
Yeah.
motherfucker's smoking a buttload of weed and just thinking
moves.
of
Yeah.
moves and the variations. And what I loved about what he was doing is that not only was he creating these new moves and innovating these new moves, he would give them away.
Yeah.
And what happened is that when he was giving them away, they were coming back in multiple variations.
Yeah.
So to see that,
kind of that open source information of moves, which
Totally.
I really like, and he was one of those first guys because I
Yeah.
remember meeting him way back at one of the first tournaments I did, and he
Yeah.
was like, just the rubber guard was just starting.
Yeah.
You know, it was just all that shit.
Yeah.
And he really like Americanized it.
Yeah.
I really think like, you know, he took a lot of the stuff, like everyone had this and that style. If I was a teenager today, I'd probably be like, yeah, that's the shit. That's
Yeah,
that fucking
yeah.
like outsider fucking weed smoking
Yeah.
fucking rebel shit. I
Yeah.
don't want, you know, that's probably what I'd
And
be
it-
like. I'd be
but-
doing that.
but there is,
and they're
I mean,
doing some cool shit down there. I've gone to Portland, gone with Nathan
with
Norchard,
Schwartz, yeah.
Phil Schwartz.
Yeah.
I would always go down there and have those open mats, and now Nathan's over here.
Yeah.
He's in Bellevue.
Yeah.
And it's like it's going to be great for the area.
Yeah. I mean, the thing about it that I love about Eddie's style is that, I mean, he was not afraid to, within his highness, which I think is very complimentary to jiu-jitsu. I know a lot of people are going to give me shit about it, but weed is complimentary to jiu-jitsu. It really is. It opens up your mind. When you smoke it a little bit, you start rolling, it'll open up your mind. What happened there? What did I do? That was cool. Can I get this leg up there? Can I do this? Can I do that? Right? You start thinking
Yeah.
in these variations of athletic movements in jiu-jitsu, right? And also he was extremely flexible. I mean, like, he was
Yeah.
genetically super talented at that. You know what I mean? So the fact that he was able to get that leg up there and then find variations of how to get into the armbar, how to get into the triangle, how to get to the omoplata, the gogoplata, all these different things in this high guard that he called the rubber guard was
Yeah.
beautiful. Like, to me, when I started doing it, I was like, oh, my fucking hip, oh, my
Yeah.
knee, right? I was like,
Yeah.
but then I was able to get some guys with that. You know what I mean? I mean, unfortunately, I started getting into it at an older age, which kind of
Yeah.
like because I was a lot more flexible when I was young.
Yeah.
I wish I would have gotten into it when I was younger. But and also that when he was the Twister series, right? Like,
Yeah, I remember that was like,
I loved it because I was always a leg rider in high school.
Yeah.
Right? So the transition to like, oh, Twister, right? Banana splits, calf crush, oh.
Yeah.
And if all things fails, I can take the back. Oh, I love it. You know
right
what
up
I
my
mean?
alley.
It's like, exactly. So, and then you start, the thing about it is like he put out the books and he put out the videos and then his schools had all these different variations of all that stuff. And now he's into the leg locks, right? And then he's doing the Eddie Bravo Invitationals, which is the sub only, which is awesome. I love the fact that he was one of the first guys to push out, the integrity of what I thought was jiu-jitsu. Subbing.
Yeah.
Subbing. I
Yeah,
don't care.
going for the
If you
sub.
take me down, great. If you can't sub me, if
Yeah.
you know what I mean, then what is it? What are we talking about here?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So the fact that he always went back to the basis of the sport and is subbing. submissions. How am I going to make you tap and say uncle? You know what I mean? And I love that about it. You know what I mean? The EBI was such a turn on when he first started pushing it out.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And
He's done a lot for the sport.
Yeah.
He's done so much to just like really mainstream the sport.
Yeah.
I like it. And yeah, EBI is great, I think. That rule set. What do you think about the weed smoking tournament? I didn't even
It's a fad. It's a fad.
And I didn't even know about it. And then some people telling me about it. And then I saw the thing on Vice.
When it comes to that, I really believe that there's certain things that are private. I don't care if you smoke weed.
Yeah.
I don't care. But nobody should know. Do you know what I mean? Like,
I believe it's a discretion issue.
Exactly. I don't think that if you smoke weed, great. That's your private thing. You can smoke in the garage. You can go out to the park. You can go do whatever, but nobody needs to know. That's your private thing, right?
Yeah.
If you want to be high while you're rolling, be high while you're rolling. I don't really care, right? Especially, I'm so thankful that now that especially in the state, it's legalized. You know what I mean? It's wonderful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it has many medicinal properties to it that has helped people, and I think that's wonderful. But at least with Eddie Bravo, his that connection culturally of weed smoking and jiu-jitsu and his music was a nice
little fit for him.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I think it helped him. At least what he told me, that it helped him in opening up his mind and being able to express himself, in understanding these moves and then putting it down on a book and putting it down on a video and then pushing it out in his schools, right? And now, he's embraced leg locking like crazy, you know what I mean? So you got these guys with super, flexible rubber guards, right? Going into all these different transitions into leg locking. And his team is kicking ass with the quintet. Those are crazy cool in Japan.
I don't know them.
The quintet is what Josh Barnett is doing with the catch wrestling, and then Eddie Bravo is doing with his 10th Planet guys, and then I think and then Josh is with Sakuraba also with the catch wrestlers, right? So they have this.
I don't even know about this.
Yeah, you got to look.
Okay.
I think it's a 900-pound limit, 5 people.
Oh, I have heard about this a little bit.
Yes. You
can have as many people as long as they don't weigh this much, or like
correct.
whatever, 2 180 or a 150.
Somebody walks out, and you pick somebody in your roster to go out there out of your 5. It could be somebody small, it could be somebody large, but it doesn't matter because somewhere down the line, they're going to pick out somebody, right, to go against your guy. You know, so it's very cool. It's in that way. There's a strategy outside of just the mat
Then
time.
the match strategy plus the team strategy and all of that. I'm going to have to check it out.
Yeah, it's cool stuff. So, and I like that people are playing with innovations.
Yeah,
and
all the variations of what's the best show, what's the best venue for this, what's the best party for this, or whatever.
I think they picked up some of the Sambo guys out of Russia, and I like that because there's so many international styles that we should be looking at. There's a lot of jiu-jitsu in Europe that is amazing. You know what I mean? That people are doing over there, right? Never mind in Japan, never mind in Brazil itself, right? And I love that. Like people a lot of times get stuck in American jiu-jitsu culture, California, right? And it's like, no, there's a lot more now.
There's a lot out there. I mean, stylistically, there's more. Like when you start seeing some of the Sambo stuff that's like actually coming out of Russia and all of that is like, it's different. It's a little different take on stuff. Your Turkish oil wrestling. But I think there's little pieces to all of that it's like there's magic in there that's going to be lost if people don't believe in it. The Joe Rogan had some like MIT kid on there and he was asking about the death punch or whatever, and he's like, well, how do you know it didn't get lost? How do you know that used to not be there? And then they brought fucking swords and the death punch technique got lost, and it's like that might be true. I believe that might be true, because I've heard people talk about like Hicks and Gracie, when the invisible jiu-jitsu was popular, like that was really hot a couple years ago, like everyone was talking about it, and like I've heard people like saying like, oh yeah, Hickson has explained to them like, oh, there's all this posturing within the basic moves that we all know. There's all this other stuff that really has gotten lost.
Yeah. Detail of control, of body positioning.
Yeah, this stuff. And then you learn some of that stuff. And it's like, some of the answer was like, well, without it, jiu-jitsu was still good enough. Yeah. So that people didn't really need to learn it. So like kind of some of the stuff we're learning is like the sloppy bastardization of older jiu-jitsu. Yeah. And it's like, I could see how that might be. And then when you take that back to like, what about all those, Aikido and fucking all these other martial arts that like yeah, they kind of look silly now.
But they were highly effective.
But what are the real applications that we're not seeing? Yeah, I've seen some kickboxing that's called karate that looks silly when it's done in a mall with 4-year-olds, but that doesn't discount the art.
Correct.
You know, back there. So it's like I'm really,
especially applied by somebody like Lyoto, right?
Yeah, applied by the right person who is, you know, and it's like, you know, a lot of these things that I kind of like dismissed. I'm like, no, you need to go and take a second look at that and see if you can find a true master and see what that is.
I've always had a dream, like I mean, I did part of it, but like to travel and to wrestle different cultures, wrestling styles, right? So I would love to go to Mongolia, right? And have that like half vest thing, right? With the boots and stuff like that, and go out and wrestle Mongolian wrestling. I would love to go to Turkey and do the oil wrestling. I would love to go to Georgia and do the Georgia wrestling, right? Go to Senegal and do that African wrestling.
I saw a girl, they had like some fucking girl in Senegal that was one of the like famous wrestlers for them, and I'm like, I remember reading the story and I'm like, how can I fucking
get there?
I actually kind of tried to stalk the girl on Facebook and couldn't find her. I was like, I'm literally gonna figure out how to like find the organization and then go and like vacation there and just, I'm like, could I show up in that town and just be like, here I am. Yeah. I'm a lady wrestler. Yeah, I have those things where it's just like, dude, I like want to do that. You know, I know
how many
there's
people
special things out there.
I love it when I talk to Jeff, you know, Munson about this, and being in Russia and living in Russia now, and go to different like sambo schools and doing their sambo, and it's like, wow, because Russia is huge, right? And all those different countries that are, you know,
they have their own little styles.
Kazakhstan, Uzbekistan, Turkestan, right? All these different stands that, you know, have their own variation of their sambo or their wrestling. You know what I mean? And so it's awesome. And I would like those are the kind of things that I know we're kind of nerding out right now, but it's like those are the kind of things that
it's the roots of it, and that's what I really like when I started thinking about the Northwest and this, like doing the podcast. I thought like, I remember you knew everyone who did jiu-jitsu. Like you literally knew everyone in the Northwest.
Correct.
And it was like maybe 20 people. Or something. You know, definitely you knew all the black belts. Yeah. And I remember one time, it was like the first time it dawned on me that I was like, someone was talking to me and they're like, I trained with this 125-pound black belt, 135-pound black belt in Olympia. And I'm like, who? Who the fuck are you talking about? Because I know them all. And he's Will Haggerty. I'm like, well, I'll be down there next weekend. You know, I just need to meet this person. And then I started thinking like, what about those days when you knew everyone? Now there's like all these, I don't even know all the schools. I need to capture all these stories. Yeah. And maybe you're going to have some magic move that's going to be captured on the interwebs for in the future when everyone forgets it. Yeah, one of us will have some. They'll be like, "Do you remember that secret oil wrestling dude from Seattle? He had that body triangle from the back where he squeezed you really hard." Yeah. And then I'll be like, "Yeah, I have an interview with that guy. It's been saved forever."
Oh my God.
Yeah. Now I don't remember you.
No, the thing about it is like for us, especially when we were, you know, playing around, is I think that's where you find these little nuances of like crazy moves and crazy subs. And that's what we were doing a lot with like Josh and Dennis Hallman and Jeff Muntz, is that we'd wrestle, playing around, goofy like, and we'd like do pro wrestling moves on each other, right? So imagine us like a bunch of Neanderthals, you know, pro fighters, you know, in the prime of our lives, just being goofy, and we'd get each other in the figure four body lock. You know what I mean? And so, like, you know, Dennis would get me, I'm pass gas. Oh, shit. Oh, that's so hard. Who can hold it the most? Who can hold it? Right?
Squeeze harder. Okay. Scoot down a little. Squeeze.
And there's variations and that was really how I got the figure four body lock in the UFC, is that, like, I took his back, I put my hooks in, and then I got the figure four, right? And normally on the figure four, you're able to hit, but he had my hands, he had my wrists. So I wasn't able to, like, strike down. And I looked at it and I was like, wait a minute. I got this.
I'm going to do that thing we were fucking around.
I was like, totally, I got this. I can do this. Okay. So, I'm going to just, like, start hipping him first, right? And then once and I grabbed him holding my wrist. I grabbed his head and I grabbed it underneath the arm, right? And then I started pushing my hips, and once his knee slipped, I had his back arm, and then I was like, and he tapped. He tapped. He tapped in this shit, yeah. And it all came from us literally fucking around in just play mode with wrestling dudes. You know what I mean?
That's
Of pro
hilarious.
wrestling
Yeah.
and like the Boston Crab and, and the camel
sharpshooter.
clutch.
Oh, yeah.
And so
I got camel clutched in one of my first jiu-jitsu tournaments by a dude.
awful. What a dick.
Marcelo Alonso had a smoker in-house. And I went against like some dude. He was totally nice. I know the guy was like, his family was probably there. Totally demoralizing. And I totally got like, none of us knew what we were doing, And he like
flopping,
stretching. I'm like, what did I do?
That's horrible.
Look at this new thing I started, everyone. Like, this dude just camel clutched me.
Your neck is all fucked up for weeks.
Yeah,
oh my god.
But it was like, fuck, it was a great story. I'm like, I think I'm doing this rad thing,
Yeah, I mean, like, there's all kinds of stuff, and I think, like, just like the culture of wrestling is amazing, and it's weird because I've been like looking at this book. It's an old like pugilistic book of ancient civilizations, right? So you have all these ancient civilizations doing exactly the fucking things that we do. You know what I mean?
You see those old statues and like little pictures of people taking people down.
So you see, pictures and situations that are being described, right, by ancient Egyptians, ancient Mesopotamians, right? You see wrestling styles from the Greeks, right, and from the Romans, right, and they were good.
Yeah.
Like they had like huge camps of wrestling and grappling background. You know what I mean? And they were doing all kinds of leg locks.
Imagine those fuckers back then.
Huh?
Imagine those fuckers back then. They got to be strong as fuck.
But I mean, like, we as human beings have always wanted to do that. It seems like, you know what I mean? Like we've always.
You look at like a bear and a dog and like any animal that plays.
Did you see that Khabib and the bear?
Fuck yeah.
Yeah. It's so cute.
Oh, the guy with the bear.
But it's wrestling. He's wrestling. The fucking thing is wrestling.
Yeah.
It's awesome. You know what I mean?
I think it's human nature to that physicality. And there's something to it. There's something definitely to that and like part of existence.
Well, especially you just see my kids. You know what I mean? Like seeing them like get in the living room and like wrestle around and push it around. It's like little kids naturally gravitate to like kind of like grapple and wrestle.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? It's awesome.
I mean, I definitely wrestled as a kid without learning wrestling. I was like, man, it would have been fun if I had moves, but you just did the crazy shit, or you watch some WWE, or, Junkyard Dog. Like, I'm going to do that shit. I remember.
Superfly Snooker.
Yeah, jump off the fucking couch.
The top rope.
Yeah.
Yeah. But like looking back into like especially this book that I was reading is like, wow, this has been going on for a long time. Human beings have wanted to, struggle with each other body to body, and there's also different variations of wrestling that have gone on throughout the years: jacketed, non-jacketed, oiled, right, belted. There's situations in different sumo, right, where it's just a belt,
a belt,
right?
yeah.
And there's variations of striking and wrestling, right, like the Senegali, the sumo.
Yeah.
There is certain striking in the variation of the wrestling, and it's gone throughout years and years of millennia of wrestling culture in different parts of the world, And I've always been very, especially with AMC being gravitated to ancient Greek, wrestling history.
Yeah.
Right. And seeing, wow, they really had, gymnasiums that, pertain to wrestling and boxing.
Yeah.
Right. And they had hundreds of years of I mean, our country is what 300 years old plus. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
it's not the
And so
same.
They had 500, so 1,000 years
Yeah.
worth of wrestling culture. Imagine that. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Imagine the moves that they.
And there wasn't a lot of other distraction. If you were doing that, that's what you were doing, and that
Correct.
was the thing.
Yeah.
And they went and studied that,
That
for
was
a
that was
lifetime.
a huge form of entertainment.
Yeah.
So not TV.
Yeah.
It was wrestling or
Yeah.
track.
Yeah,
You know what I mean?
games
Or
or
horseback
whatever,
riding. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a deep history. I wish there was more real like history on it. I haven't. Maybe there's a lot more, and I just haven't read it. But it doesn't seem like that. Like maybe they did capture it. What's your book? What's the book you're
I
reading?
forgot the name of it. No, it's the ancient wrestling arts or ancient martial arts or something like that, and it just goes into like different variations of wrestling and grappling in
Well,
these
all
different
over the world.
all
They
over the
had-
world.
They had all kinds of different ones.
And they describe how it was in Egypt, in Mesopotamia, in Africa, and different parts
Yeah.
of Africa had different variations of wrestling.
Yeah.
In Asia, right, and the steppes between the Mongolians and all the different Turkish invaders, they had different variations of wrestling. Super, super, super interesting.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and how that pertains to their cultures and what was going on at any given like specific time.
They even have like different wrestling in indigenous tribes in South America and in Brazil,
Yeah.
right? And so it just like and naturally it's not they don't have a lot of contact with civilization, but they've created certain wrestling within those tribes. So it's always been there in us. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
In some
every
kind of
group
capacity.
even has made their own. So it's like something where they all are doing it.
Yeah.
That's fascinating.
I love that stuff.
You got to send me the book. You got to send me the
Okay,
picture of the
yeah.
book. I'm going to look at it. I like seeing, I have this one book and it shows those like old boxing hand wraps where they put some fucking like shit in it. Do
Yeah.
you know what I'm talking
Yeah.
about?
Like
Oh.
They I
would
think
put-
back in the day, there's like they used to put resin on it,
Yeah.
right? So it like what was it? It was like the leather they would be wetted, but then they put it on and it would dry and it would shrink,
Yeah.
right? The leather would shrink with that resin in it,
And they'd
right?
wrap some like beads or some other stuff in
yeah.
it to make it like even worse. Like some
They were
brass-
evil. Like I don't think
Yeah.
they really cared, about like making sure that they came out healthy.
To do more It was to
Damage.
do more damage.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Horrible. Have you seen like certain the Roman times? They had like fights, boxing fights,
Yeah.
but with like these like brass knuckles, but they were like intense brass knuckles,
Yeah.
right? And so they had these fights with guys with metallic gloves, basically beating the shit out of each other. You know what I mean? You're seeing
A
guys
hammer
shoot-
affixed to your fist.
And
Yeah.
obviously that was the catalyst to gladiatorial fights and stuff
Yeah.
like that. But God, dog, that's
The-
a hard way to make a
humans
living.
have thought of a lot of crazy ways to kill each other, and that like for entertainment, not even for war
Sadistic
purposes.
bastards. Like if you
for
look at like what they
Yeah.
did, it's like horrible. You know what I mean?
And then they
Like,
just one upped each other over and over. Like we got to make it more exciting now.
I'm scared of that. Like I'm really scared because I remember when BJ Penn had his UFC fight with Joe Daddy.
Okay.
What's his name? Joe Daddy.
I know who you were talking about. He was on one of the early Ultimate Fighter.
Correct. And so that was one of the first fights that the UFC let just happen after a cut, right? And Joe Daddy got cut by BJ Penn, you know what I mean, in these big gashes all over his forehead and his eyebrow. And there was blood just running down his face. Like it was like, and they didn't stop it. That was one of the first few times that they didn't stop it or cleaned it up or anything.
Yeah.
They just let it through. And you can see that Joe Daddy was like looking up in the sky with
Yeah.
blood all over his
pooling.
face. And in my mind, I'm like, this could get really ugly in a hot second if they don't fucking stop it really quick in some kind of way, right? Because that's what I think the sad thing about human beings is that they're always going to want up it, right? They're
Well,
always
that's
going
where
to...
I started thinking about it. Like I listened to I think it was a Dan Carlin. He was talking about like fucking the hardcore history dude. Do you know this like podcast? He like does history stuff, and he went over this history of like how people killed other people or like did the gladiator for sport, and it's like, where do we extrapolate things? How they're going now? Like, and it's like UFC used to be like mega exciting, but how is it going to get, like, you're always going to have to keep adding shit.
And right now, they're and it's weird. It's not popular, but it may be that they're having these gang fights, right, in Russia and in
I've
different parts of the
seen some
world
of that
where they have
shit.
like 5-on-5 or
Yeah.
10-on-10, right? So they have these little gang fights, and then they're doing like night fights. So they have guys in full night regalia, right, with the the metal
The real,
helmets and the swords,
LARPers,
yeah,
but for
with
real.
shields,
Yeah.
right? And so I mean, I love the sport of fighting. When I can see this, and maybe not now, but maybe later on, that it could mutate into something very similar and regurgitate, gladiatorial
Yeah.
and night
Did
type
you
of
ever
fighting.
hear that rumor? I don't know if it was a rumor or a real thing, that there was some rich dude trying to have like some gladiator games in like Russia, like in one of those places. I was like, is this real
I can
not? And I'm like, it doesn't even matter, because it could be.
absolutely.
That's the scary part.
Absolutely. I could totally see somebody with a buttload of money
Yep.
that you could swim
wanna
in a
do
tub of
this.
his money, right? And human expenses is non-existent, right? And say, hey, guess what? For this money, would you do this, right? Can it happen? Absolutely.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Like, it's like scary to think about that it can go in that direction. You know what I mean? So, but can it happen? I think, and I hope not. I really don't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Because I enjoy the certain purism of fighting to its limit as it is right now. You know what I mean? I can see that, okay, that's good enough, right? But when I start seeing, a little knife in the hand,
A little more.
right, brass knuckles, then a little knife, then a little sword, then a sword and a shield, and then multiple, right, and then multiple guys against multiple. The spectacle of that would be horrific. You know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I don't think I would enjoy it.
I don't think I would. I want to kind of be like, let's stop it at like building community, right? We went to fighter, and now we're evolving back to community builder. Not how much more grotesque can you
push the
push that
antes, yeah. Just like, how far can you go with this? You know what I mean? And when I saw that with BJ Penn and Joe Daddy, I was like, ooh, yeah.
Yeah,
'Cause
a small signal to what could come.
Yeah, because I'm like very surprised that when you see guys that are just drenched in blood, right, and their faces are cut and they won't stop the match. I'm like, why? Why can't you at the very fucking least stand them up, wipe their eyes? Could you please wipe their eyes? Like in my mind, I'm like, please wipe their eyes.
Just some kind of compassion.
Please wipe his eyes,
Yeah.
so he can see. I just want him to see while he's down there and getting.
Give him a fair shot to like see his way out of this.
Yeah, it's just, oh my God, seeing like things like that irk me. You know what I mean? Like, and there's nothing. Like I know a lot of people are like, oh my God, the blood is horrible, and a lot of fighters are like, no, it's not, and it's not really, it's not that bad, but I can see that going in many directions that is like not cute, you know what I mean?
Well, and I think there's a lot of things that people do now, even as fighters, that it's like some of the like crazy weight cutting. People are always going to go to the extreme to try and, win.
Yeah.
And or achieve the goal that they've set out and put so much into. If you can do one more thing, and it's like,
especially if there's money behind it.
There's
Lots of
money.
money behind it. People do a lot of stupid shit.
Yeah. And you see, hearing even like Khabib and like his seizures and his weight cut and all of that. Did you hear about that?
Yeah.
And it's just like, because these are kids, young guys, and it's like, we're talking about like, there's probably smarter ways we could have done all that shit.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? And I think in many years there will be those people asking those same kinds of questions.
Yeah.
It's kind of, you think about that in football too, like CTE and all those things, that it's like, okay, that, I don't like thinking of the athletes as being just like complete commodities like that. It's like you still want to have this respect for them and for care. It's a very narrow margin of like what's over the line or not. I don't know, but it's like when you start seeing some of those things that you're like, that's not over the line, but it's signaling that it could go over the line. That gives me a little heebie-jeebies.
Absolutely. What are you paying for? I mean, like, what is, the price of your entertainment?
Yeah.
You got to ask yourself that. You know what I mean? That these guys are
And these are
like,
people.
30 miles an hour at each other, full board, head down, head to head. You know what I mean? Just like, and I like the sport of football to a certain extent. You know what I mean? But and I love the sport of boxing. But, you know, I mean, when you hear some of these boxers, you know, slurring their words and punchy and not remembering anything and like, you know, literally not being able to communicate because of their previous, you know,
what they gave
sport,
of themselves.
right? And so I you know, it is what it is, and I'm a true believer that, you know, a lot, you know, there are consequences to your actions, and if you choose this life, know that you have the chance of being damaged in your brain. Know that. Don't get it twisted. You will have the opportunity to damage your brain if you're not careful. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. You have to be realistic about it.
Absolutely. And even I evaded strikes like a mother. You know what I mean? I'm like, don't hit this. You know what I mean? It's like I avoided it much, but I know that I took on a lot of punches also.
Yeah.
Right. A lot of hits, a lot of strikes, and so not healthy. Not healthy, and likewise with you, you know what I mean? Like, you know that you got some nice little concussions in your life.
Yep,
you know
I took some hits and I took some mileage, and it's like, okay, now we need to treat it with care and hopefully hold it together. Yeah. It was worth it though. I go through it where it's like, I don't know, and it's like, no, I'm happy to where it brought me.
Yeah.
You know, that's where it's like I could also, if I changed it, could be facing a lot of other illnesses and injuries.
Yeah.
You know, you see, sat around and got some diabetes. Don't have that. I don't have that.
I don't have that.
Right? Don't have a lot of these things. So it's a definite trade-off, and I have experiences, but I'm trying, the happy middle ground is where I want to be.
Yeah.
You know?
Now.
Yeah. Now I want to have that happy middle ground. Okay, Ivan, I took up tons of your time. I really appreciate it.
I appreciate you.
I had
Thank
a
you,
great
Cindy.
time.
This was awesome.
Yeah, thank you. I'm glad you agreed to it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
this is cool. Thank you so much for letting me, you know, take up your time.
Yeah.
This was beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, everyone, so you made it through the episode. I hope you had a good time listening and got to share a little bit about the passion that Ivan has for grappling. We really appreciate him sharing it with us. And so, check out more about what Ivan's doing with his team at ivansalaverrymma.com online. And you can find them at Facebook and Instagram, Ivan Salaverry MMA. Again, we want to thank Ivan for everything he's done for the Northwest grappling scene and just for the community up here. We really appreciate you, Ivan, and thanks for taking the time to talk with me. Maybe we can have you back another time and it won't take a couple years. So thanks everyone for listening. Check out more episodes at cindyhales.com, and I appreciate listening and taking the time. Thanks.